Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for Tuesday, December 14th to order. We have a 5-member board tonight. The board members that will be sitting on tonight's hearing are member Steve Lianis, Ilando Spinola, who is our new member of the board, Fire Chief Brian Nardelli, James Sweeney, and myself, Kenneth Galligan. I would ask the clerk to call the roll call to make sure all the board members are present.
Mr. Lianis. Mr. Lianis.
Here.
Mr. Spinola.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sweeney.
Here.
Chief Nardelli.
Here.
Chair Galligan.
I am here.
Excellent.
So I want to welcome our new alternate board member, Ilando Spinola, to tonight's meeting. This is his first night sitting in on the board, so welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I would ask that all the participants tonight that have a cell phone, a radio, or television, or whatever that may interfere with the audio on tonight's hearing to please shut them off so that we can hear all of the participants. Prior to tonight's hearing, we have 2 cases that have been withdrawn. And I'm going to read those 2 cases now. If you're here for these cases, they are not going to be heard tonight. They're going to be heard at a future meeting. The case that's been postponed and withdrawn here is 21-102, the petition of Dualafat and Berlan Jean, 30 Kennedy Circle, Southeastern Mass, for a variance from Article 3, Section 2710, Table 2, and Article 4, Section 2729, for a mixed use to allow 5 residential apartments. A variance for green space and seeks to convert an existing building into a 100-seat restaurant, lacking required parking spaces for same, but has in writing legal permission to have additional shared parking with the abutting church. This is located in the C2 zone at 1159 Main Street. That case will not be heard tonight. The second case that was on the docket, which will not be heard, is 21-105, the petition of Stephen Stetson Trust, Catherine Van Teep, 664 North Carey Street, Brockton, Mass, for a variance of Article 3, Section 27.9, to convert a single-family home into a 2-family with 2 parking places instead of 4 parking spaces as required in an R3 zone located at 6 Stevens Avenue. It has been determined that this particular case does not need to come before zoning, so it will not be heard tonight. Following that, is there anyone tonight that would like to withdraw from tonight's hearing prior to the start of the hearing?
Mr. Chair, I did not see any hands up. I have not heard any person ask for it.
Okay, so we have dealt with the withdrawal. The order of operations tonight will be as follows. When the case is called, the petitioner will present the case to the board. After the presentation has been completed, I will then open it up for questions from the board members to the presenter. Any board member that might have a question about what was just presented, this would be the time to ask that question. When that is done, I will close that portion of the hearing and I will open it up to those who are with us tonight that are in favor. And anyone that wants to speak in favor of the petition, that would be the time that you would want to speak. If there are any letters or emails, I will introduce those also. Following that, I will close that portion and I would ask for anyone that's in opposition, who then would have an opportunity to speak. And if there are any letters or emails, I will enter those in also. Following that, I will ask if there are any elected officials that want to be heard on the issue. Once that has been completed, I will close the public hearing and I will then open it up for deliberation from the board members. Now, this portion of the hearing is only for deliberation purposes between the 5 board members. It's not open to the public. Keep in mind that in order for a petition to be granted, it requires 5 affirmative votes from a 5-person board or 4 affirmative votes and 1 negative from a 5-person board. A 3-2 vote results in not passing the petition. So in order to pass, we need a minimum of 5 affirmative votes. When it comes time to vote, the clerk will call the roll call and we will record the the meeting results. I will announce the results to everyone, whether it's been granted or if it's been denied. So that's how the hearing will go tonight. Also, I just want to make sure I introduce our zoning enforcement officer and our building and superintendent and the clerk to the zoning board, which is Mr. James Porth. He will be running the meeting on your end tonight. And our recording secretary for tonight is Monica Fragazzo. So, board members, you got any questions before I get started? Everybody's good? All right. Just hold on for 1 second. The first case that we will hear tonight is petition number 21-103. The petitioner Ralph J. Smith, 1019 Crescent Street, Brockton, Mass. For a variance from section 2712 subsection 1 to construct a single-family home in an R1C zone located at plot 37/0 Winter Street. Are we ready?
Mr. Smith, are you here?
This is Ralph Smith.
I do not see Ralph on here.
Is Attorney Creed in there?
Ralph and Attorney Creedon are both there. I see them muted.
Okay, you got to unmute them.
I can't unmute them. They have to unmute themselves. There we are.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you good now.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Good
we'll call the
evening.
case, so you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through members of the board, it's an unusual, this petition was filed by Ralph himself, challenging, if you will, in English, whether this lot is a grandfathered lot, okay, 2712. For those members that are not familiar with 2712, it is not only state, but locally, the ordinance that indicates if you qualify, you have a grandfathered lot, which would be a buildable lot. What it does, it waives, if you will, if it's a grandfathered lot, that's an existing lot of record, which this one is, of course. And this one goes back, I did the title on it. This one goes back till at least 1966, when the husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Kazion, bought the property. They brought it with several other lots. I can tell you that my client, Ralph himself, just to do a little housekeeping, has done in this city in the last 30 years, over 200 new houses and renovations of houses. Most people are very familiar with his work. I believe in your file, you will see not only the house that is right next door to this that he just built, but also if you've visited the scene, the members of the board, each and every one of you, you will see that it is in complete harmony with all of the other houses on Bourne Street. The lot in question is lot 37, and it is on the arc, right on the arc of Bourne and Winter Street. And again, Ralph has done several brand new houses on Winter Street over the last 10 years. I can tell you that the proposal, and you have, I believe, in your packet, the engineering site plan done by Ed Jacobs, land surveyor, that indicates clearly and easily that a single family house can be placed on that lot without violating any of the then existing situations concerning lot size, setback, side and rear front. And you will see that there is a proposed driveway, just like the house that he did next door in the last few months, which would house one car, which was the law and the ordinance in those days. I can tell you also that not only does he build a beautiful house, but this particular house is coming, if we get the permission from the board to recognize that it is an existing lot of record and that he does qualify under 2712, which I will go through in a couple of minutes, because there are certain requirements, as the building inspector knows, for qualification of a 2712-1 situation. And that's as a result of Ralph himself a year or so ago applying to get a building permit and was denied. And the denial detailed that it was 2712 that he did not qualify for. So I will go through what I think is the error in that reasoning. There's been a lot of controversies, I think Mr. Chairman knows, over the years about 2712. But I'm going to read, especially for new members of the board, 2712. It's known as existing lots of record in residential zone. Certainly, this is a residential R1C zone, and I can tell you it obviously doesn't derogate from the intent of the fathers that did the zoning there. Residential is what should be there, and residential is what is there. Number one, it says no structure. And it, of course, in our ordinance book, it defines what a structure is. It's almost anything, but in this case, the reference we're making is to build a single family house. On any non-conforming lot, well, certainly right now, the dimensions, size, and all of that, it remains since 1966, it remains a non-conforming lot. The question is whether or not it is an existing non-conforming lot that complies with that 2712. So I'm going to read further the requirements, and it says, if adjacent to a lot in question, there exists vacant land, and I can tell you this lot was vacant, so that's agreed. In the same record ownership at the time of the chapter, and I can tell you that Mr. and Mrs. Kazun had it as husband and wife, tenants by the entirety, so that part was there. Which would create a conforming lot if such vacant land were combined with the lot deficient in area. And I think that's where the prior building inspector missed, if you will, because if combined, it still wouldn't be a buildable lot. You could combine maybe three lots of that size or four to make a buildable lot. So that's the language that I suggest has been a flaw for the building department through the law office when they made that original ruling. And I did get a more recent one pretty much reflecting and just regurgitating exactly what, quite honestly, Attorney Nezzarella's city solicitor office had. We also comply completely with the minimum under 2712, and that is that there be 50-foot frontage. You can see from the diagram, there's absolutely 50-foot frontage, that there is absolutely 5,000 square feet minimum area. And I can tell you that this lot is slightly bigger than the buildable lot that the city approved that he built right next door. If you've been to the scene, you'll see that new house that's there. This lot is slightly bigger size-wise than that is. And again, there is no, I think there is no combining of the lots back then that would have made that a buildable lot. I can tell you that just in your deliberations for your really consideration, if you have seen that lot and been to the area, it is a tremendously overgrown, disastrous looking lot that not only has our Board of Health in Brockton had numerous complaints by the neighbors, and some of them thought that Ralph owned it, and he doesn't. He has it under agreement through an estate, the estate of the Kazuns, and would build a beautiful house there. I direct your attention for your deliberations to Article 1, Section 27(2), which is the very opening of our ordinance book. And it indicates the purpose of the ordinance chapter as declared to be the promotion of public health, safety, convenience, morals, and welfare by A, encouraging the most appropriate use of the land. I can tell you the most appropriate use of that land is not to leave it like an out of control forest with shacks and things on it, old sheds. I think they were building sheds, not specifically on this lot, but right next to it. So the last thing it says in that 27(2) is that preserving and increasing the amenities of the city. Right now, I can tell you, I've got all the prior tax bills, and the city gets practically nothing for taxes from that lot. With a new lot, they would get a tremendous amount of more taxes. And obviously, the intent of the citizens back then, the board, was to make it, a residential area, attractive, safe. That's not a safe lot either visually or transportation-wise. And again, it's not bringing in any taxes. It would if Ralph were allowed to build that house there. I think that, Mr. Chairman, is all that I want to say. At this time. Ralph, did you want to add anything to it? I believe in your packet, you see some of the houses that he builds. Yeah, I hope you've been to some or all of you have been to see how gross that lot is. And this is not, I'm not trying to make a pun here, but it is presently in foreclosure. Mr. Smith offered to pay the taxes and still does, the back taxes, which I understand is somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000 at this stage. And if you play it all out, and that lot is useless, the city's going to end up with it, and they're going to have the burden of doing something with it. And my guess is it's going to cost a lot of money to take out those trees. I'm very familiar with recently all the tree companies that charge to get rid of those trees. So that's basically my position and Ralph's position, unless you wanted to add something, Ralph, to it.
I'm fine.
No, he's okay with it. So I'd like your deliberations to recognize that that is an existing non-conforming lot that is buildable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any of the board members?
Mr. Chair, if I could, Jim Sweeney. Mr. Creedon, did you say in there that meets all front, side, and rear setbacks?
I believe it does. I have a copy of it in front of me. Yeah, and it does.
Okay.
Only has to be 10 on one side and 8 on the other.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, on a corner lot, any lot that's delineated after zoning has to have a 30-foot setback on the side to be in conformance with the front yard setback on the side street. Any lot that was developed prior to the zoning of 67 can have half that distance. So it's my opinion that you need at least 15 feet of side yard setback on the side street, which would be Bourne Street. Right now you have 12 feet. Secondly, the question of hardship. Can you explain once again to the board what the hardship is with this piece of property?
Well, I think you're,
Other than,
Mr. Chairman, you're aware that corner lots have been considered in the law and in court cases to be unique in itself, that they are corner lots. Secondly, I think 2712 would indicate we don't have to step up to the most recent 30-foot situation. I think that it sets and goes by what it was back then, making it a buildable lot. So I'm not ducking the question. I don't think it applies at this stage. But that may be part of the variance that he's looking for.
my reading of
I didn't.
2717 specifically states prior to zoning and after zoning. And prior to is 15 feet, after is 30 feet. So all of these 3 lots that are shown on this plan are currently under one ownership.
They were, yes.
Well, as you are
Obviously.
aware, we have a determination from the law department that the corner lot and the adjacent lot, number 37 and 38, are combined into one lot. And lot 39 is the lot that has the house that sits on it, which is on the other intersection. So it's been a determination, at least from the law department, that these two lots are combined because they are under one ownership. And the other
Well,
issue that I have is the side yard setback, which is at 12 feet. In my opinion, it should be 15 feet. So that's a concern that I have. All right, any other questions from any other board members? If not, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor? I do have a communication that has come into me from a Jason Miller that lives at 11 Bourne Street, and he supports Ralph Smith in his effort to obtain a variance to build a single-family house on Winter Street in Brockton. The property is overgrown and unsightly in its present condition. A new dwelling at this location would be a tremendous improvement. Ralph has recently completed a beautiful home at 11 Bourne Street, which is adjacent to this lot. Please allow him to continue his great work in this area. I know firsthand the positive effect he has had in my neighborhood, and I live directly across the street from 6 Bourne Street. So that's a letter that was submitted in favor. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor?
Mr. Chair, I do not see any.
I am going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition?
Public official.
Mr. Chair, I see none.
All right, is there any elected official that wants to be heard on this issue?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would just like to echo the words of Mr. Miller. I spoke with several of the neighbors about this, and people are satisfied with the work he's done in the area. And they are also very keen on getting, something built on that that corner there, just making it nicer to look at, live with, and everything else. They do have a lot of problems with the visibility when they go around the corner, and just having it cleaned up and contributing more to the neighborhood. People are very much in favor of. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, for the record, that is Councilor Lally.
Councilor Lally.
Sorry about that.
Is there any other elected officials that want to issue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Council Monahan.
Welcome.
Thank you. I just want to echo sentiments of Council Lally, and I know personally from work Mr. Smith has done in my ward that it's top-notch work. He's does everything quality, and I just like ask the board to grant him this variance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other elected official that wants to be heard?
Mr. Chair, I see none raising their hand.
I'm going to close that portion of the hearing, and I am now going to open it up for deliberations from the board. Board members.
I'm going to go ahead and say this is probably the best use for this property, tax-wise for the city and aesthetically for the neighborhood.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's consider now that if 27, what did I say, 2712 requires a minimum of 15 feet on the side yard setback, he's only got 12. So are you suggesting that we should grant a variance also on the side yard setback?
I would suggest that, yes. Seems like it would be a nice addition to the neighborhood. Nobody has shown up in the against. And even though the city could take the trees down themselves, I think the resources of the city could be allocated better elsewhere. If a private enterprise like the petitioner is going to do himself.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
one thing I would have to say too, just driving up in that neighborhood, when you come down Bourne, concerns with the setbacks and such, I completely understand. I think one of the problems with that lot, unfortunately, though, it's so overgrown, it's worse than any house that would ever be on that. And the house would spruce up the neighborhood. To the councilor's point that he brought up, Council Creedon there, about the problems with that lot. It is quite honestly a shame that people who take care of their houses in that area are dealing with that. So I think to just talk on the setbacks real quick, I think anything that's overgrown on that is a lot worse than what the setbacks would be. And I understand your concern though.
I would agree with that too.
I guess my concern is the size of the lot, where it, in my opinion, should be combined with the lot next door to create one buildable lot. That would allow a house to be built on those two lots that would give plenty of side yard setback, and it would be setback both from the side street and the front yard. So my concern is, first of all, the lot should have been combined or is combined with the lot next door. It's my opinion as one member. And I have a serious concern that that house is only going to be 12 feet from Bourne Street. So. All right, any other comments? If not, I would entertain a motion. And for the benefit of our new member, we have a policy on the board that whenever a motion is made, it's made in the affirmative. And if you make the motion to grant, it's okay to vote in the negative. But all of the motions are usually done in the affirmative, and then the vote is taken from that stance. So if there's
Motion
no
to approve.
comments,
Motion to approve.
Second,
motion has been made to grant, and it has been seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Leanis,
Yes.
Mr. Spinola,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Chief Nardelli,
yes.
Chair Galligan.
No.
Mr. Chair, that's 4 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative.
Thank
Okay,
you,
the vote
members
is
of the
4
board.
in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. The petition is granted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. The next petition, 21-104. The petition of Alicia Fernandez, 56 Ford Street, Brockton, Mass. For a variance from Article 3, Section 27.9 and Article 4, Section 27.29 to raise an existing building and construct a two-family home in a C2 zone located at 1449 Main Street.
Again, good evening, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the member of the board, Attorney Jake Creedon. We are at 71 Legion Parkway. The engineer, Azu, is here with me. If you want to see him on the, but he's in the office, and the actual owners and petitioner is here with me. If I may proceed, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
go right ahead.
Thank you. This is again, a rather unusual situation in that if you have actually gone down to see the building, there's no question it has its flaws. It's a very small lot. It's a very small building, but and it's in a commercial zone. It has been on and off. There's been attempts to try to rent that or sell it as a commercial building. But as we all know, its highest and best use in 2022 is certainly not a commercial use. There's no parking. It would have to be on Main Street. And that is both a safety and a aesthetic problem. The building itself was built, I think, back in 1940. It presents, if you will, somewhat of a fire hazard in that it's been vacant all the time. There is immediately surrounding it 2 multifamilies that are occupied. So from a point of view of the petitioner willing to spend the money to raise the building down, increase the foundation somewhat, put in a 2-family up and down, 3 bedrooms up, 3 bedrooms down, 2 parking spaces either side of the new building, that certainly from a fire standard point of view, it's got to be something that we would like better than what we see there. It's impossible to use or to rent or to sell as a commercial piece of property. I don't have to tell the members of the board all the way from almost Avon to West Bridgewater that there are so many residential uses abutting commercial uses all the way up and down on both sides of Main Street. So this is not a derogation, if you will, from what is existing. And to put a new building there, and I don't have to tell you also that, there's been a tremendous housing push in Brockton. And the single room occupancies and smaller sizes seem to be what people want nowadays. All of that was part of the Campello project that Mr. May and the others put together. I think the hardship here is that it is a commercial zone with a commercial building on it, and it's impossible to use it really as a commercial building. So its size and its ability and amenities to have parking and other things is not there. Therefore, I think that's a unique situation that is a hardship in this particular case. That's basically, you have the plans there. The building would be 1,400 square feet. It's an up and down with entrances and exits separate, so that there's no fire hazard situation should there be any kind of a fire in a new building. Azu is the engineer. Azu, you did the plans. Can you come down here so that they could, you can tell them how it appears to nicely fit in that piece of property. And they have a copy, all of them have a copy of your plan here, which was just done, I guess, this summer, maybe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay. Wazu, tell
Thank
them
you.
what, in the green space, all of that has been improved.
Yes, sir. So what we have done, and I guess I cannot really add any more quality or substantive information than Attorney Creedon has done. I believe he's done a very eloquent and succinct presentation. I just think that what we are doing here also mitigates the setback concern. The building which being proposed will provide for substantial setback of 36.6 feet, much more than what is required. I have actually established a zoning table that gives the requisite setbacks and dimensional requirements. There is really no specified minimum lot area. We have 66, almost 6,700 square feet. Minimum frontage specified none. We have 50. Front setback, side setback required is none. We have on one side, we have 11 feet, and on the other side, 11.1. So trying to balance the layout of the building within the lot. And the rear, 20 feet, where abutting a residential zone is required, and we have 29.8 feet. Minimum green space required, non-specified. We are providing 65% of open space with green area. And that is what I basically informed the way we laid out the parking in order to improve and maximize the green space. And that's the extent of it, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My wife told me I always try to keep it short. And I hope I have done that.
Mr. Chairman, also just, not that it's an additional part of hardship, but if you visited the property, you can see the condition of it, but if you notice the topography out behind the building slopes significantly down, I believe it would be my client's duty and ability to level and take care of that situation so that it doesn't become a hazard to any renter or owner of that property, future owner. That's basically the presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Board members, any questions?
I just have
I
one
have
question.
Oh, go ahead, Brian. So I just want to clarify, there's going to be additional green space added.
The entire perimeter is going to be green spaced
In the rear,
in the rear.
in the middle, and the middle section here, where the existing concrete block building will be raised, that will become green space.
So it'll be an increase of green space, or will it be the same, or?
A major increase in green space, even though it's
Okay.
a small lot, yes.
There was an old building that was raised here.
Mr. Chair, if I could, Jim
Go ahead.
Sweeney, how many parking spots is the plan laid out for?
4.
4, with a 3 and a
Yes, sir.
3 bedroom?
Three
So that's
bedroom,
two spots per 3 bedrooms?
Correct.
three bedrooms in both apartments.
Okay, thank you.
And it would be stacked parking, which isn't the greatest parking in the world, but it's sufficient in numerous places in Brockton and other towns and cities in the area.
I mean, I'm asking because you are at a corner of 2, obviously our main street and, what is that, Brookside Avenue? So
Correct.
stacking any street traffic I could see as a potential hazard. That's why
Yes.
I'm asking.
Yeah.
So just,
That was my question, Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
That was just my question about the parking situation.
I have a question relative to green space. I just heard that there's going to be a major increase in green space. I don't quite understand that. When I look at the existing block building, everything behind that now is green space?
Technically, yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, actually, where we're proposing the building, there was a previously existing building that was raised along with the shed that was in the back. So that was all occupied by building before. So we are now eliminating the front block building and then pretty much constructing this building in the area where we had an old building. And this is a much smaller footprint than that was raised. If you walk in the back, you will see the remains of the old concrete building that was there.
Okay, just two other comments here. On the front of this building, with fronts on Main Street, in both places where there's stacked parking, those cars are going to have to back out onto Main Street. You're showing between those parking spaces directly in front of the building, proposed green space.
Yes, sir.
Can you enlighten the board as to how you think that green space that you're showing on the front will remain as green space and it will not be paved over?
That will be, I believe there were the board looking at similar stuff that we did on Tremont Street, which pretty much informed the layout of this project here. That could be a condition of approval that can be enshrined in the records and make that a requirement in perpetuity.
Okay. All right, the board all set? Keep in mind also too that a two-family house requires a minimum of 10,000 square feet of space. This one has 6686. And the side yard setback of 11'4" on the north side of this is truly 11'4" from the existing building at 1445 Main Street. The existing building at 1445 sits directly on the property line. So the 11'4" from this proposed building to the property line is roughly 11.4 to 12 feet from the building at 11:45. All right, if there are no other questions from the board, I'm going to open it up for comments from the general public. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor?
I see none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition?
I see none, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there any public official that wants to be heard on the issue?
Yes, there is. Good
Yes,
evening.
Councilman Castro?
Thank you. Good
Okay,
evening. My name is Susan Castro. I represent Ward 4. This property is located in Ward 4. I was not contacted by either counsel for the applicant or the applicant herself. I am very familiar with this property. When I first moved to Brockton 31 years ago, this was a hair salon. And I know they've had trouble renting it and they have tried to sell it. On either side of this property, it remains a C2 zone, but there are also residential dwellings on either side of this property. I do get calls about this property and one of the ones next door related to cars, junk cars being stored in the back and motorcycle activity. That said, I think this could be an improvement. I notice it won't be in line with the other properties which are closer to the street. That's probably not the worst thing. My concern is the stacked parking. This stretch of Main Street is very busy, and someone commented that it's close to Brookside Avenue, and it is a busy corner there. People take that corner quickly. I'm also concerned about the green space in front. I like that idea, and I like the bituminous being picked up in the back and green space being added. Where will the guests park? They certainly won't be able to get into the backyard. Where will people visiting this household park is a question that I have. Ultimately, I think it will be an improvement if the developer does a good job. The applicant is related to Fernandez Brothers Development. They seem to do pretty good work. And so with these reservations, I would probably support it. Thank you very much.
thank you. Any other elected official want to be heard on the issue? If not, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. I'm going to close the public hearing and now open it up for deliberations from the board. Board members.
Mr. Chairman. It's the chief. Just, I guess my biggest concern is again, when we talk about that parking that Mr. Sweeney and Councilman Castro brought up, my biggest concern is about the public safety aspect of the fact that now with people backing in, because that would what it would be in and out of those spots. And the concern with that greenery that's going to be there, are they going to be able to see? And the concern is them backing out of those lots and the people in the traffic because it is so close to Brookside. That would be probably my biggest reservation in regards to a public safety perspective. That's all.
I too have a concern with the stacked parking or backing out on a main street, particularly if the main street has the green light. Cars that are heading south on Main Street are moving along at a pretty good clip as you come out of that, as you approach this intersection. The other question that I brought up that I was hoping to get a better answer for was the existing area that's in the front of this building between the two stacked parking areas. My concern is that a year from now or after this is built, we're going to drive down there. We're going to see that whole thing blacktopped over, even though there may be a stipulation that we'll put on there that it shall remain as green space. If the board is so inclined, a stipulation could be put on this that a granite edge stone needs to be placed between the property line and the sidewalk with a raised up green space on the front so that they cannot line up 6 or 8 cars across the front of that parking lot. And I hate to say it, but I've seen it all over the city that once we grant this with a stipulation that there shall be no parking on the front lawn, within a year, everything's blacktopped over and we get cars parked all over the place. My opinion is this is a commercial zone. It could be developed into something that's commercial. I'm very concerned with the side yard setback to the existing building at 1445 Main Street. And I just have reservations that the front yard is going to be a disaster within a year. So if you're so inclined, I think somebody should put a stipulation on there that somehow either a fencing or a raised curb or something needs to be placed to delineate the stacked parking from the front yard so that it cannot be converted into a parking area. And even if it is not blacktop, it'll turn into a situation where instead of backing out on Main Street, people are going to be driving across the grass and exiting forward out to Main Street. So I'm just concerned that what we see in the plan is not what it's going to be when it's done. That's my concern.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could add to that. I am all for developing the property. However, I think where it's not being occupied and we do have some issues, as Counselor was mentioning, I don't think that's, I think that, you know, is an understatement as opposed to what we could create with a parking issue at a corner of a major intersection on our main street. I really do think the parking situation has to change, whether it's behind the building. Again, if you have anybody over and the other occupant is home, you're either parking farther away from it or you're on the street.
I just think there's a little better potential here for parking in this lot than what's being presented to us.
Mr. Chair, I'm also slightly concerned about the stacked parking, and I think it could be configured in another way that would be more advantageous for the people in the community. And I'm also concerned about what the green space will look like in a year from now. So I like the idea of adding a stipulation if we will be moving forward.
I think the stipulation, if they can manipulate it on that lot, would be behind the building to park the cars so that you can only have one cut. And you have to go behind the building to park it and out. So one in, one out, so you don't have a lot of activity on that corner.
All right, so I am thinking of what we see in front of us if this is voted the way we see it. I think we should put a stipulation that there has to be some type of a restriction placed along the sidewalk in front to prohibit parking on the front grass. If this is not approved, then I think the potential developer has heard what the board is looking for with a different parking scheme. So, what do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, motion to grant.
With the stipulation of the front?
Yeah, with the, yes, with the stipulation of the front, with the front parking. With the green space there.
With the stipulation, I would second that.
A motion has been made to grant with the stipulation that there shall be a raised portion along the property line and the sidewalk to prohibit parking on the front grass that we see in the front of the building. Is that how everybody sees it? With that, I'll ask for the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Leanis. No. Mr. Spinola.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
No.
Chief Nardelli.
No.
Chair Galligan.
No.
Mr. Chair, that is 4 in the negative, 1 in the affirmative.
Okay, the vote is 1 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative. The petition is denied. Okay, the next petition is 2105, which will not be heard tonight. That's been withdrawn. 2106, we are going to delay till later in the evening. We will move to 2107, the petition of Jeffrey Vizzaretta, 1183 Main Street, Weymouth, Mass, for a variance to convert a single-family home into a two-family home in an R2 zone located at 84 Myrtle Street.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, please identify yourself.
My name is Attorney Brian Palmucci on behalf of the applicant Jeffrey Vizzaretta.
I'm sorry, Brian, what is it?
Palmucci, Palmucci.
Got it.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm here representing Mr. Vizzaretta on an application that he filed himself seeking permission to convert an existing single-family home located at 84 Myrtle Street to a two-family home as is permitted in an R2 zone, which this is. We're here to request a variance from the zoning requirement of 100-foot lot frontage. This property is similar to those surrounding it in the neighborhood in that it doesn't have the 100-foot lot frontage required in R2. This is a pre-existing non-conforming lot. It was in compliance when initially created, but that's obviously changed over the years through updated zoning ordinances, which has brought it out of compliance. The lot is also unusually shaped in that its width runs from a width of approximately 60 or so feet in the front to 45 feet width in the back. Obviously, the approximate 60 feet frontage at the front of the lot is below the minimum frontage required of 100 feet. The lot shape creates a substantial hardship in the best and highest use of the parcel, which by R2 zoning would be a two-family home. There also exists a financial hardship in that a lot in an R2 zone that cannot be used as a two-family would decrease the parcel's value. A literal enforcement of the frontage requirement would not generally affect the zoning district or the neighborhood in a negative way. In fact, many of the properties in the neighborhood are multifamily homes with similarly sized lots. For example, and I believe we provided to the board in written form was some examples of area neighboring lot sizes. For example, we're at 84 Myrtle. The two neighboring properties, 88 and 92 Myrtle Street, have 50 feet of frontage each, and 106 and 110 Myrtle Street have 60 feet of frontage as well. So it's not inconsistent with what the neighborhood or how the neighborhood currently exists. Those have multifamily properties, multifamily structures on them. They too are undersized in the frontage. The allowance of this variance, I suggest to the board, would not negatively impact the area, as it would be consistent with the existing structures and lots, and would otherwise conform with R2 zoning ordinance. I'd be happy to entertain any questions from the board.
Board members.
So I mean, just rolling along from our previous case, how many parking spots are proposed in this multifamily?
See, let me pull up my plans. My client is on, Jeffrey, how many is it? Four
There's
parking
four
spaces?
in the rear of the building.
Four in the rear of the building.
Okay, thank you.
There's a garage there now that'll be torn down and parking will replace it.
Okay,
service
that will be torn down. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Is there any reason why the petitioner did not submit a plan that shows the new addition that they want to put on the back of this house? It appears that they want to put a 24 by 20 foot addition off the back of this house, which is going to be brand new. Am I right?
My understanding is that those plans were submitted. I believe.
Yeah, the plan should be there. That it's 2 pages. So one should be the first floor, another one should be the second floor. And it says the square footage, et cetera, on the plans.
I have the plans for the layout of the house. My question is the site plan. The site plan does not show the proposed addition that's going to be added on the back of this house. It appears as though what I got from the double set of plans for the interior of the house is that there's going to be a 24 by 20 foot extension, brand new addition put on the back of this house. So you're not converting this house into two family, you're actually adding on a
Yes.
new 24 by 20, correct?
Correct. And portions of the inside will be converted to accommodate a two family rather than simply, the addition is to assist with that, to provide additional living space, but the existing building will be separated internally along with the addition in the back to create the second family. So I apologize if that was misleading what I had said
Well,
originally.
I don't know if you want to call it misleading, but it took me a while to decipher where this addition was going to go. Initially, I thought they were reconfiguring the original house to make it in a two-family, when in fact they're adding a substantial addition on the back. What is not shown on the plans is the side setback from the new addition to the west property line. It shows a 7.8 foot on the original house, but now with the addition, there's no dimensions for any of this new addition. So I just want to clarify that I think there's a substantial piece of this thing that's missing. All right, any other questions from any board members?
Mr. Chair, I was wondering if they could just clarify what hardship is.
Certainly, yes. If I may,
Clarify what?
through you,
Clarifying the hardship?
Mhm.
if I may, through you, Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
the hardship is twofold. One is it is an irregularly shaped lot, given the width of the lot, and second would be a financial hardship of the parcel's inability to be used in its highest and best use under an R2, which would be a two-family home.
You all set on that one?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
All right.
Chairman, if I just could real quick, I guess to go to your point in regards to the situation with no plot plan, it's in trying to look at that parking out on the back where that garage is going to be raised to add for those 4 spots, which is the way it needs to be. My bigger concern with being able to look at this plot plan and not see that, I guess it really, it is, I guess, I don't want to say misleading, like you said earlier, but it's difficult to get an idea where that addition's going and how much it's going to impede on the turning radius for those cars trying to move in and out of that back lot. Can you maybe explain that a little more? Because I have a very hard time visualizing it, quite honestly.
Certainly, and if the board if the board would prefer to see a more in-depth site plan, we'd be more than happy to provide it. If we'd voluntarily continue the hearing, go over to your next date, and we'll provide that in the interim if the board would be more comfortable with seeing that laid out in the way that the two
And
members.
I understand that, Mr. Palmucci, but the problem is we have to make a decision. And that if I can't see it now, that's where it's difficult for me to be able to understand where the property's going. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's very hard for me to understand when you're looking at the parking's obviously adequate for a two-family, but when I'm now looking at where that house is going to come out to, I can't tell if cars are going to be able to get by. You see what I'm getting at?
I do. Yes, I understand.
Yes, when applying for the application, I did see that, I was told to get the survey. So that is the original survey of the plot. And they'd asked to add the parking on, and the floor plan, yes, it is separate. If the council would want to make a contingent upon it be building up instead of across on the land, that is something I could do with the architect as well.
Okay, the other thing that we need to take a look at is the front landing. It appears as though when I went down there, the front landing that's proposed is a little bit larger than what is shown on this plan. So even though we're showing 14.9 feet setback from the edge of the sidewalk. Obviously, that landing and the steps are going to be encroaching on the setback. You can encroach about 4 feet. So this is a little bit more than 4 feet. So I just wish that there had been something here that would have shown what this addition was going to look like. It would have been very helpful if we had some kind of a rendition of what this building is going to look like when it's completed, such as potential, what it would look like from the street, what the roof lines would look like. But anyway, aside from that. All right, any other questions for any other board members? If not, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor?
I do not see any, Mr. Chair.
I'll close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition?
None that I see, Mr. Chair.
Is there anyone, any elected official that wants to be heard on the issue?
None have raised their hand, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. The public hearing will be closed. I am now going to open it up to deliberation from the board members. Board members.
Mr. Chairman, I find it very difficult to follow because I like to see the whole picture, and unfortunately, I have concerns about not being able to see that whole picture. That's why. But
I would agree with that. It's tough to make a decision based on what we've been given.
I have a little bit of a problem with the hardship on this. There currently is a building there, apparently was damaged in a fire. Obviously, it could be repurposed into what it originally was. And when we talk about the density of the neighborhood and things that we're supposed to look at on zoning, I don't see that this is an irregularly shaped lot in relation to other lots in the area. If this is going to be converted to a two-family, obviously, as the petitioner mentioned, it really should have 100-foot frontage. It has 66 feet. I think it would have been very helpful for the board to see what the proposed addition is going to look like. And when I first looked at this, I really thought that they were trying to reconfigure the interior of the house to make it into a two-family. And then I finally figured out that there's an addition going on in this place. So right now, the building is unoccupied, apparently damaged by a fire, and there is a potential here for rehabilitation and to increase the value of the house. He mentioned it's a financial situation to make the house more valuable, perhaps for resale. I don't know if that is what we're looking at when we look at zoning. Any other comments from any board members?
No, I agree. I don't think they provided enough information with the site plan, and I personally don't have enough information here to be able to make a decision on this. So
I think I'd add to what Steve just said, but for the benefit maybe of the petitioner, I mean, I'm not necessarily against the development. However, the details are what we're looking over here.
I would agree, Mr. Sweeney. I think, it fits the neighborhood. I mean, going by it the number of times I did, it's hard for me to get a grasp on the whole big picture.
Mr. Chair, I'm in the same realm. I need more information in order to vote this forward.
Is there any way I could, I apologize because upon the application, it said the survey of the current land and then the proposed floor plans. I was not aware that it should be the floor plans attached with the other survey as well. Is there any way I could continue this to the next hearing by chance, just so I can bring on those further details so we could deliberate on that?
We will vote tonight on what's in front of us. It is too bad that the petitioner gave us a set of plans of what rooms are going to look like and never informed us that there's going to be an addition put on the back of the building. There is a mechanism by which you can come back to this board But I think you've heard from the board members, and we'll see how the vote goes, but there's some very pertinent information that's missing on this. I think there's certainly incomplete information to make an informed decision on this one. So I'm open for the board member to make a motion.
Motion to approve in the hopes that it fails.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve with the hope that it does not prevail. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Leanis,
No.
Mr. Spinola,
No.
Mr. Sweeney,
No.
Chief Nardelli,
No.
Chair Galligan.
No.
Mr. Chair, that's 0 in the affirmative, 5 in the negative.
The vote is 0 in the affirmative, 5 in the negative. The petition as presented is denied.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for your time.
Thank you. All right, the next two petitions actually go hand in hand. And I believe what we should be doing here is probably reversing these. We should hear the request for a variance before we hear a special permit request. So I am going to go with petition number 21109. The petition of Elevations Incorporated, 68 Hubbard Avenue, Brockton, Mass. For a variance from Article 3, Section 27-24.4 on adult use marijuana, Section 3, subsection BI. Marijuana retail operations shall not be conducted or located on the ground floor in a C3 zone located 156 to 160 Main Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay, sir?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, good evening to the board. My name is Jim Valeriani. I'm with the Mensing Law Group representing Elevation, Inc. Mensing's principal address is at 100 State Street in Boston, zip code 02109. The owners and managers of Elevation are with me tonight, Victor Texera and Jose Andrade. The owner of the property, Paul Protentis, is on as well. And we should have an architect and or an engineer from North County Engineering out of Taunton on as well in the event we need to share a copy of the plans. Now, you should have received a 6-sheet plan set. I want to make sure you've got our plans. I don't want to see a repeat of what just happened. So we can share that on the screen if necessary. So, Mr. Chairman, this is going to take a little bit of time, but I'll try to be as brief and direct as possible. You may recall this company received a special permit from this zoning board in November of last year to locate a marijuana retail establishment on the second floor at 156 Main Street. The company went on to get a site plan approval and a license from the city council. Now, the city council has issued, I believe, a dozen or so marijuana licenses in the city of Brockton. Of that dozen or so licenses, the vast majority, I believe over 10, are located in the C2 Central, that is the general commercial zone, where retail marijuana is allowed by special permit on the ground floor. In the C3 zone, the central business zone where we are located, marijuana retail is allowed in that district by special permit, but not on the ground floor. So why the city council arrived at that determination is unknown to me. We abided by it, and we sought our special permit and received it for that second floor location. Now, with that said, I realize what this board may have voted or decided, or other permits that may have been granted to other users in the city don't set precedent for us. But there were 2 other marijuana retail establishments in the C3 zone, about a half a dozen blocks from us, one on Pleasant, one on Main Street, that received approvals to locate on the ground floor, and they're in the C3 zone. 73 Pleasant obtained a variance. I don't want to get into the merits of that, but they obtained a variance to allow their use on the ground floor. The one on Main Street happened to have 2 ground floors, frontage along Main Street and along the side street, but both are ground floors. The ordinance does not distinguish between the 2 different ground floors. So what that leaves us with is a competitive disadvantage. It's a financial hardship. As customers are walking, driving, visiting in the downtown area, if they're walking by 156 Main Street, they're going to have to either go up a long set of stairs or take an elevator to do business at a retail operation for a retail transaction that would take 5 to 10 minutes at the most. It's a lot easier to walk into one of those other establishments and do your business. So I know that members of the public are simply going to say, well, I don't need to walk up that set of stairs. It's easier for me to just patronize one of the other establishments. Retail in downtown areas is almost, at least point of sale, quick transactions is almost always conducted on the street level. In downtown areas, including Brockton, typical downtown development that has occurred over the past 100 or so years, and even now, allowed for or typically involved retail on the first floor, business offices or assembly on an upper floor, and perhaps residential above. Now, the city of Brockton, in its 2015 Brockton Downtown Action Strategy, indicates ideally for the downtown area, the C3 zone, retail or restaurant on the first floor, business offices or service establishment above, and then the mixed use being residential above that. And the Portentis Plaza is pictured prominently in that report in its executive summary. So clearly there's a master plan of sorts there that would like retail on the ground floor to revitalize the downtown area. So the way we can approach a variance here, at least I'd like to suggest, is twofold. It can be approached based on the fact that the building was designed, therefore its shape was designed for retail on the first floor, offices and assembly on the second. We looked at the Mass Historic Register. The building was built in 1933. It's known as the F.W. Woolworth's Rom's Jewelry Store. Woolworths had retail below, perhaps some above. Rom's Jewelry had a retail on the first floor. I believe there was a pharmacy on the first floor as well. And Mr. Portentis can testify that he's typically had retail below. That is the ideal use for the retail, for the building, and businesses above. So this building was designed, and all of the buildings, I believe, I can get a consensus on this, along Main Street in Brockton, mostly retail, perhaps some services, with businesses above, offices above. So whether we view this as looking at the shape of the structure, which is allowed under 48 Section 10, or under the use variance provisions of Section 10, which your ordinance does allow use variances, either application would lead us to the same conclusion, the same result, that retail is ideal on this first floor. That's what that building was designed for. And there's no, and this is important to use the language under section 84010, there's no substantial detriment to the public good by allowing this on the first floor level. And it does not substantially derogate from your ordinance. Now, your ordinance, everything allowed in the C2 general commercial zone, including retail stores and liquor stores, all of those uses in C2 are allowed in C3 as well. And special use permits in the C2 zone are allowed in the C3 zone. So special permits can be issued in the C2 zone for ground level. And we're seeking a special permit in the C3 downtown zone for the ground level. And again, I mentioned how those other two uses obtained that approval. We know we are at a significant disadvantage in terms of our business operation, our retail. That is our financial hardship. That is without derogating substantially from your ordinance. Bear with me if I may, just look over a few other items. I know the building owner would like to see retail on the floor. That has been the historic use. And by utilizing this first floor, we're utilizing 20% less space than on the second floor, which was offices. I'd like to keep that as offices. Let's see, bear with me. So that's it. I believe I've made the case. You know, the other two applicants that received special permits in the C3 or won a building permit, I mean, both received special permits, one received a variance as well. They came before us in the permitting process, and we had already designed and leased out space on the second floor, believing that was what was required in the ordinance. And now that those other two companies have obtained relief, and we know we're at a financial hardship being on that second floor. Without derogating from the intent of the bylaw, no substantial detriment, financial hardship has been shown. We seek a variance to locate this marijuana retail operation on the first floor of 156 Main Street.
Thank you. Board members, any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I could, so you're located on Brockton's Main Street and you're looking to kind of reestablish on the first floor. Is there any plan to spruce up the facade on the bottom where the signage and all the, you know, the advertisements and all that? Because quite honestly, in my opinion, it's a little subpar.
Yes, and if I can add, that came up with the site plan review approval we received from the planning board. They did condition our original special permit, site plan approval on working with the owner. There is a sign, a cantilevered sign that sticks out over the sidewalk. It is no longer in use. That could be removed. I don't believe there's any pre-existing non-conforming rights to it. And, you know, the Portentis Plaza is one of the buildings downtown that's listed in your urban revitalization study area as a candidate for rehabilitation. So locating this retail operation on the first floor, it would be a higher rent for the property owner. It would allow him to earn more money to spruce up the building. And we're going to want to put some signage up as well. It would be a chance to modify the signage and clean up the building. Yes, we would like to work with the owner on that.
All right, so but the question is, there's no plan at this moment?
Well, not under this we don't have signage prepared under the, it would be discreet. It would not be large signage. It would meet the dimensional requirements for signs. But any new signs we put up, again, would have to meet those dimensional requirements. And we would work with the owner to remove any existing signage, old signage, signage for businesses that are no longer operating to minimize the signage on the building.
And I asked this because, you know, all the other ones with, you know, I can see the competitive advantage. However, we would put this, you know, these are the same conditions the city puts all these businesses through, being on the first level. So that's why I asked.
Thank you. We agree.
Is there any particular reason why we don't have a site plan for this location?
Well, we do have a site plan approval that was given to us that you did see in November of last year. Nothing is changing on that site plan, Mr. Chairman. Because we're just going on the first floor. I don't know if that was part of the package. We can bring it up on screen right now and show you, but there were no changes to the site plan from last year. The building takes up the entire lot, all of the square footage.
Okay,
No parking.
let me just clarify my question. What you were granted was for a location on the second floor of this building.
Yes.
The board that you're sitting before tonight, most all members of this board were not sitting on the board
Okay.
when that site plan was presented last year. So
Okay.
in all fairness to the board, there should have been a new site plan that was permitted with this new application.
Mr. Chairman, the architectural plans we provided do serve as the site plan. As I said, the building takes up the entire lot. There is
Okay.
there is no other information needed other than those architecturals. And
I
that is
have
sufficient.
the site plan if I can share the screen.
Okay, I would, please, if I may, Mr. Chairman, we have a representative of North County who can show that site plan, and you'll see does not provide any information in addition to what our architecturals. Please go ahead, North County rep.
Yeah, I just need permission to share the screen.
I'll let you share the screen, but I'll tell you that this information should have been presented so each board member would have the opportunity to see what the site looks like. I will defer to you to show us what you want to show us on the screen, but please realize that all of the stuff should have been presented to the board as part of the package. So
Mr. Chairman, and again, without being argumentative, our architectural plans, that floor plan serves as the site plan. It shows the building takes up the entire lot. There's nothing else to show. No parking, no landscaping, nothing. So what you have in front of you serves as both architecturals and the site plan.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Sharing is on.
All right, so I have the plans up on the screen right now. That is the architectural that's shown right there. And this right here is the site plan. So this is the plan that was originally submitted with the original application, as you can see from the cover sheet right there. Basically just outlines the locus, which is located right there at Main East Elm School. And the main portion of this is the site plan that went to the other boards. The building is shown right here on this lower corner on East Elm Street. It shows the parking spaces that are out there fronting on Main Street going all the way up. The whole lot is the building. That, as was stated, we have the rest of the parking spaces shown on there, and we also show the public parking of the garage as well. That's within the vicinity of the plaza. And the next sheet was the distances showing the locus to the parking garage. So as you can see, from there we have basically 380 feet from entrance to entrance on the parking garage. Also, there's another the parking garage to the northeast corner that a lot of parking area that is 524 feet away from the location as well. So those are the site plans that were previously submitted to the other board that went with the other application.
Okay, so that site plan that you just showed us is at least a year old?
This site plan is, yes.
Okay, my other question is, I don't see anything in the package here about attestation for education. There are no marijuana retail established within 500 feet of a pre-existing public or private school or kindergarten grades 1 through 12. There's nothing that has shown that you have done an investigation to ensure to this board that there are no educational components within that radius.
Well, we have, Mr. Chairman, and that's covered under the special permit application. That has not changed. It has no bearing on the variance
Okay,
application.
I'll
which is
move on
before you.
after that.
Thank you.
And what about the attestation for other retail establishments? That there are no
none,
other
just
marijuana.
other than the other two I mentioned, also in the C3 zone on the ground level on Pleasant and Court Street. We are a sufficient distance from those as well.
But we have nothing showing that.
You have my testimony, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. Very good.
I'm an attorney of the bar. I took an oath of honesty. So I sense some, quite frankly, some animosity towards this site, not just tonight, but previously, and I don't understand why.
No, I don't think you should say that there's any animosity. All I'm saying is, in order for this board to make a decision, we have to have the documents that are needed to make that decision. And what we're seeing tonight is some documents that were prepared over a year ago. And you're supposed to show this board that you have up-to-date information about the location of other marijuana locations and education. That's all I'm saying to you.
And you have my testimony that that remains the case. We had filed this in September, not a few months ago, and we elected to wait until we had a 5-member board. And I think just based on the discussion right now, there's certainly a good reason why we wanted a 5-member board.
Okay, any other questions from any board members?
Counselor, Chief Nardelli, are you currently operating on floor 2 here? I guess there was just some confusion with me as to, you are currently operating, is that what I understand? Because that's what you came back for before, or this is completely new?
It's completely new. We have not operated, and if we were to be approved, we would not exercise our rights under the special permit from last year for the second floor.
Thank you.
We did get the police department's review and approval from Captain LaFrance for our security. We would have to go to fire and public health during the planning board process, but that is not required for the special permit or variance process.
Could you explain to the board how you're going to get deliveries of marijuana into this location? And what
Yes.
you're going to do for storage?
I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question, Mr. Chairman?
Storage or the waste, how you're going to
Okay.
handle that?
Yes, there won't be a significant amount of waste. It'll be the equivalent of any retail space, recyclables, office waste, lunchroom waste, bathroom, paper towel waste. That can just be carried out in bags and removed by the company and brought to an appropriate disposal site. The marijuana product, there will be little, if no, disposable product. They will have strict inventory control because of the value of the product. Unlikely any will be expired. If it is, it would be properly destroyed, mixed with organic materials so that it is not usable, and it would be disposed of properly. So there are other areas of the building where we could store the waste. There are other areas of the building where we could locate our regular trash, but the company would remove it on its own with respect to deliveries. Again, there's no on-site parking required in the C3 zone. Deliveries would be random, okay? And they would be communicated by the delivery company to the retail operation, and they would pull up as close as they can to the building in a legal parking spot. And the deliveries are quick, within just a few minutes. It's typically locked cases of product that is carried in. Those cases stay, and the previous cases that were there are removed. It's done very quickly. It would be no different than any other type of delivery on Main Street in Brockton, and these delivery vehicles are the size of light vans, typically like the small Amazon vans, Ford Transit vans, and they're highly secured. And so deliveries are not a problem for us at all. Employees would park at Crescent Street Garage at long term. And there's on-street parking on front of the building on the other side of the street. And there's the public parking lot near the city, across from the city hall, and within all of the parking garages are within 5 minutes. So various options, there'll be no trucks of any kind.
Also on that note, there's a primary rear entrance that is going to be utilized for the product that comes in. It's a controlled entry point. So you need access keys in order to gain entrance into and out of it. And that would go on into the back controlled hallway within the floor plan that I have up on the screen. And then the vault is right there towards the back of the building. Inside the vault, they have a product waste specifically for the product that is to be destroyed and removed from the property. So it's all controlled on the back end, and the customers would not see that coming up through the front.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question. Just to follow up on my previous question, you stated that you're not operating on floor 2 now. I guess you talk about a financial disadvantage because of this. If you're not already operating there, how do you, how do you make that claim that you're at a financial disadvantage to the other proprietors if you don't have anything to back that up, for lack thereof a better term?
Because we know that patrons aren't going to want to go up a set of stairs or an elevator to make a quick retail purchase. They're just going to walk on by, they're going to drive on by, they're going to go to 73 Pleasant, which is on the ground floor. We walk right in and out, or over to 4 Main Street, where you can just pull into the back and go in through that ground floor. So we have no doubt that we are at a competitive disadvantage, and we know that we're going to lose customers by being on that second floor. There's just retail, that type of retail is always, I shouldn't say always, but primarily located on the street level.
Okay. My question is just because I guess I'm a mathematic and analytical person, that I'm just, if I don't have anything to compare it to, that's why that was what my question was based on, not the basis of, because we know, I guess is.
Well, and again, I had pointed out that the redevelopment plan, downtown action strategy, suggesting retail. I think the reason for that is they know that what will create some vibrancy in the downtown area. That's the logical use on the ground floor.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
My question again is kind of what I've stated earlier. Would you be opposed to any stipulation of cleaning up the front? I know that where that building falls is as far as the revitalization for downtown. However, I'm not sure that building is actually in the queue, even in the next few years from now. So what you see might be what you get. And thank you for pulling that up. My suggestion would be is if you're going to operate on our main street, perception is reality. Would you be opposed to any stipulation of cleaning up all where it's blackened in the windows, not the rest of the building? Would you be opposed to that?
No, sir. I have the owners on, Jose and Victor. That does not appear to be a lot of work or money, but clearly it does need some tender loving care. Certainly that cantilevered sign that is out of commission would be removed. The posters, paint the front, maybe do some, get rid of the awnings. Yeah, it would have to be dressed up.
There is a lot going on there. And if this was to pass today, I would hate to have had my name on it. And if it looks like that.
Jose or Victor, unless you disagree, I would say yes to that. Can you confirm? You guys got to get off mute.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you okay with cleaning up the front? I don't see why not.
No, of course, that's actually what we brought up to the owner there. We're definitely gonna clean that up.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cleanup as far, are we reconditioning or are we replacing all that front signage? That's basically the old school signage where, you know, the black and white writing is a throwback, but that's the space I'm talking about where it says Protentis Plaza, that entire banner.
Yeah,
On
the
down.
banner, that black banner would have to get redone. The canvas awnings underneath would probably have to switch those out and do like a metal roofing so it lasts longer and stays in a better condition. The cantilever on sign would have to come out and maybe just clean up and spruce up the remainder of the brickwork on the front outer facade just to make it much more appealing than.
All right. And is that a sign that sticks out on the right side there of that image?
So this right here, I believe, is the banner in the banner.
Just above that, sir.
Perhaps.
Just above that on the right, above that blackened
Yep.
area.
Right
Yep, that
there.
right there.
Yeah, that's the old cantilevered sign that would get removed.
Okay. Okay, so you're not against any stipulation of cleaning that entire front?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you.
You done?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, any other questions from any board members? If not, I'm gonna move on to the next. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor?
Yes, Paul Protentis, I'd like to speak in favor. Hello.
I got you. And for full exposure, you are the owner of the building. Are you there, Paul?
Paul, you're on mute. You got to keep it off mute.
Unmute. Stay unmuted. Is that working now?
Yes.
Okay,
My question was, Paul, just for full disclosure, you are the owner of the building.
correct. Yeah, I'm the
Okay.
trustee of, Protentis Plaza, Paul Protentis.
Very good, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor?
I see none, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition?
I see none, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there any public official that wants to be heard on the issue?
I see none, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. That'll be the end of the public hearing. I'm now going to open it up for deliberation among the board members. Board members.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, do I get to speak on behalf of the petitioners?
Who am I speaking to? The attorney?
Paul Protentis.
Well, are you going to speak in favor or against? Or what do you want to say, Paul?
Yeah, well, first of all, good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Paul
I'm going
Protentis.
to reopen that portion of the hearing to allow Paul to speak.
Sure, great. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Paul Protentis, I'm the owner of Protentis Plaza. Lifelong Brockton resident, graduated from Brockton High School. Longtime business owner and building owner. I actually purchased the property back in 1998. It had been abandoned for a number of years. I've, despite some of the things about the signage, which frankly I agree could be updated, I have put about $250,000 of my own money and maybe close to that in taxes towards that building since 1998. Brockton, I've seen Brockton at its best and at its worst, and obviously we're moving, I hope, and that's why I purchased the building, in the right direction, right? We're starting to diversify the downtown, get more businesses in there. Frankly, I would love to see Google or Starbucks come into downtown. But for now, we have to realize that there are some businesses that are still reluctant to move into downtown Brockton. Even I can tell you this after almost 23 years. I do see a pickup of traffic, but unfortunately, TGIFs is not coming here yet, although I hope they will. I'm thrilled that I was approached by these individuals to open their business in the downtown, because it's one of those businesses that in my mind is complementary. If you bring in a business that's going to bring in a whole new set of people into downtown Brockton, then it has a very good chance of bringing supportive businesses in as well. The increase of traffic. I personally, I'm not a marijuana user, never have been, but that matter has been deliberated ad nauseum locally and throughout the Commonwealth. And this is a reality. This is the direction that society has collectively decided to move. So I'm excited that we have a couple of local guys that are willing to invest really, a ton of money, a ton of time, money, and effort to bring their business into downtown Brockton, and in particular to my building. When they approached me, they were looking to comply with the ordinance. They had looked at a lot of different space, and they said, you've got second floor space. We have to comply with the ordinance. So we're going to look at this and come to an agreement, which we did. They have complied with everything needed to comply with. And that's, in my impression, that's the kind of guys that they are. They want to do it the right way. They're also Brockton residents. They seem very, they've got families here. They seem interested in doing what's in the best interest of the community. They've hired and designed the second floor in compliance with the existing ordinances at considerable cost. Somewhere along the line, the powers that be recognized that I think they were handicapping these downtown dispensaries by insisting that they be on the second floor, right? And there's probably not numbers that we can produce, but it's probably common sense that most of your retail businesses are going to be on the first floor because people want to come in and easily make their purchase, get out to their vehicles, do it quickly rather than go upstairs or on an elevator. So somewhere along the line, the city recognized maybe they were putting an additional and unfavorable restriction on the downtown folks who would really, we were trying to help by having them comply with this being up on the second floor. And you're restricting a retail outlet to the second floor does put on an unnecessary barrier to the success of that business. Nonetheless, these folks have complied. And frankly, when we saw that there were other dispensaries opening up on the first floor, and they approached me, I said, yeah, of course. If we can get you on the first floor, that's where retail belongs. It was a Woolworths, it was Brahms Jewelers, it was Bailey Stationery, it was Mary Jane Shoes, it was Plaza Pharmacy, always on the first floor. So, that's where you belong. It's going to increase your opportunity for success. Now, these guys have done everything that they can to comply. Like I said, they spent a ton of money. I do want to point out there was an article in WGBH on February 28th, 2020. The title of the article was Minority-Owned Marijuana Business Owners in Massachusetts Are Being Crushed by the Wait for Licenses. It was by Tori Bedford. It seems as though individuals of color are having a harder time getting past these barriers. These guys, as I said, are, they're good businessmen. They're straightforward. They want to see this succeed. I want to see it succeed. I'm going to help them in any way I can because their success is my success, is really everybody in the downtown success. So we're going to work collectively together to make sure that we satisfy the needs of the community in the short term and long term. I'm not some guy who flew in from Colorado or Los Angeles. These guys are local guys. I'm local guys. We're gonna do it right. So I want to speak strongly in favor of this. I'm not charging any more rent than I would anybody else. I want to see them succeed. I want to see the downtown succeed. So thank you very much for your time and effort. And I hope you look at this variance favorably to give these folks a fair chance at succeeding in their business dream. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right. I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. I'm going to go back now to deliberations by the board. So I'm going to open it up to board members for deliberation.
I'm in favor of this project so long as that facade gets cleaned up. You know, the revitalization starts with every business that goes into business. So if approved, it starts with this business. And the facades would be my stipulation.
Excellent.
I will just chime in on my concern with what is proposed. I don't disagree with what we heard tonight, that the marijuana industry is most likely here to stay. They did come before this board and they picked a location on the second floor and they were granted that. My concern is that when this whole marijuana business was put together and proposed in the city of Brockton, the Brockton City Council, who is the elected officials in the city, worked for a year or two to put together a set of rules and regulations on how they were going to regulate marijuana, both manufacturing and distribution within the city. And they were very specific in the downtown area that marijuana retail was not going to be at ground floor. You could walk in off the sidewalk into a store. And I just am very concerned that the city council, who is the elected officials in the city, put together the rules and regulations. We are an appointed board that is looking to grant a potential variance to allow this to be located on the ground floor in the downtown area, when the authors of this ordinance were very specific that they did not want retail operations at sidewalk level downtown. So I guess that's the dilemma that we're faced with, is even though what they're proposing tonight and what we've heard in testimony, it's my opinion that all of this belongs before the council. I think that the ordinance that prohibits this from happening on the ground floor in these buildings probably may have to be changed. I don't know. But we did not create this ordinance. The elected officials created it. And our job is to see if there is something that's unique. Is there a hardship involved? But don't lose sight of the fact that the elected officials are the ones that put this whole operation together.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I do see the hardship in this. I mean, nobody is going to go upstairs, you know, in a retail environment. And I do think it's something the council has to revisit. We're not set. The city probably is not in business to put our businesses out of business. I totally see that. So, you know, so that's my piece on that.
Well, if there's no other comments that are going to be made by the board, the chair would be open for a motion. What do you want to do with this thing? So if this is granted, there would be a stipulation that the front of that building, the words I heard was going to be cleaned up. And that meant the black banners across the front of the building, the honors, the facade, the cantilevered sign was going to be removed. And we did not see any indication of what they're going to have for signage for the building, other than they said they would be in compliance with other rules and regulations for marijuana signage. So if this was approved, I guess that would be a stipulation.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I'd also like to add proper lighting to the front of the building.
What does that mean?
Enough lighting to cover the entire black banner, proper commercial use lighting.
Well, let me just delve into that for a minute. I believe that the council has passed an ordinance relative to the type of signage that has to be used on storefronts in the downtown area. And they're encouraging some uniformity of signs throughout the whole downtown area. So I don't know what to call this, on lighting of commercial use. I don't know if you need to be more specific.
Yeah, lighting that conforms to the downtown lighting conformity.
Okay. Anything else? There is a stipulation also, we didn't mention, but I'm sure they're very much aware of it, that the business can only be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. They cannot do any business before 8 or after 8. And that's all in the regulation. So the stipulation is that they would have to be in conformance with all rules and regulations governing the sale of marijuana. And it's very specific in the city regulations for that. I don't think we have to delve into every one of them. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve with said stipulation.
You want to second that? Well, it's a matter of accommodation.
Second.
Yeah, well, second. I'll take that back. Fire chief is seconding that. Okay, so there's a motion been made and seconded to grant the variance to allow the retail sale of marijuana at the ground floor level on Main Street with those stipulations that we talked about. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Leanis. Mr. Leanis. Mr. Leanis. Mr. Leanis says yes. Mr. Spinola.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Chief Nadelli.
No.
Mr. Chair Galligan.
No.
Mr. Chair, that's 3 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative.
The vote is 3 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. The variance is denied.
So, Mr. Chairman, we had a special permit that is moot at this point in time. So that wraps it up.
How do you want to handle that special permit? You want to withdraw the special permit for now?
Well, we can't get it without the variance.
Well,
yeah, so I can't, I'd like to say thank you, but I won't, because this board granted a variance for 73 Pleasant and it was illegal. So thank you for ruining what was a good project.
Okay, thank you.
Nice job.
So petition number 21-108, the petition of Elevations Incorporated, 68 Hubbard Avenue, Brockton, Mass. For a special permit from Article 3, Section 2724.4 on the adult use of marijuana, for permission to operate a marijuana establishment for retail sale in this building which requires approval in a C3 zone located 156 Main Street, will not be heard.
Chair, we have just that one remaining case, 21-106.
Yes, we do. The next petition is 21-106, the petition of Red's Dairy, 18 Jefferson Street, Fall River, Mass, for a variance to develop commercial business being a gas station and a convenience store with drive-through window. Also seeking curb cuts on Pleasant Street and on Pennsylvania Avenue. Relief of buffer zone of 38 feet on the westerly side adjoining the entrance to DW Field Park in a C5 zone located at 609 and 627 Pleasant Street.
Evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Attorney Philip Nesrella representing the applicants before you. To give a little background, if I may, this particular property was had processed applications prior to tonight by Mr. Brad Cartwright, the owner of the property, who, if the board recalls, had submitted requests for variances to start different types of businesses. One was a restaurant. He was going to have offices there, and for whatever reasons, they really didn't get off the ground. And he kind of stalled the project, and it's been sitting as is for the time being. Red's Dairy has looked at this. They're an entity that specializes in the development, operation, and management of gas stations, brand name gas stations such as Mobile. This is their area of expertise. This is what they do. This is what they do well. They looked at the property and expressed an interest in under purchase agreement with Brad Cartwright to take it and process and move forward. We are aware of the issues that face this particular location. We're aware of the past history, and we are prepared to address all of those issues. First and foremost, Mr. Chairman, we have a plan that will be presented to you this evening by the engineer, which basically mirrors the same plan that has been approved by the board before. The proposed curb cuts are in the same location. The area on Pennsylvania Avenue, we will be requesting a curb cut there because we think that will facilitate any issues with traffic. We understand that there is, well, before I get that, on the lot itself, as you will see on the plan, it's of an odd shaped lot. It's an L shape whereby it comes down and moves out like a boot in a foot. The difficulty here in developing any type of a building with an L shape, unlike a square or any other shape that has equal angles, is that for access and egress makes it difficult. The location of the building makes it difficult. And it is possible, yet at extremely much burdensome financial levels, to do something in that situation when you have an odd shape. Odd shape is one of the criteria that you have to meet under Chapter 40A in order to get the variance, and we are proceeding for the request of the variances based on that odd shape. And again, in order to develop a project of this size in cost and be able to get a return on your monies, you are certainly going to have to be mindful of how much is put in to develop this type of a project. And because of that shape of the property, the oddness and the uniqueness of the shape, therein lies the difficulty. The second issue we will be dealing with after you see the plan as laid out to you we'll hear, I'm sure, voices that may not be in favor of it. And there's always the recurrent theme about, well, don't we have enough of this and don't we have enough of that? That I will respectfully say, even though I am sensitive to those issues, is not within the prerogative of administrative boards. That is strictly and clearly a legislative function. Those who create the laws lay out how much of one thing or how many of another should be set, just as we have liquor licenses in the community, how many tobacco licenses we grant. Unless it's specifically stated, we as boards do not have authority to say, well, I think we have enough. And there is case law to substantiate that as well. There will also be issues about the dangers of having such a facility here. And I will suggest to you, there is a difference between speculation and concrete facts. And I'll be prepared to address that after we hear all of the comments. Gas stations are not a destination type of business. Unlike a restaurant, people don't say, I can't wait to get to my favorite restaurant on 629 Pleasant Street. Most people, myself, go to a gas station when I need gas, wherever the gas station is. So I don't believe the introduction of this gas station at this location is going to cause an uptick, a significant uptick in traffic. And we have a traffic expert who has compiled an exhaustive report. In fact, I think it's probably close to 400 pages, or based on trip generations and analysis of the traffic flow and the ebb and flow on that street during different times. And the conclusions will be stated by him that he does not believe that that will be a significant uptick that will interfere or cause substantial detriment on that particular area of the street. And as we all know, businesses go where there's traffic. They don't go in areas where there is not traffic. And I'll also state that the traffic engineer, Vanessa and Associates, is one of the most prominent and respected traffic engineers in the Commonwealth. So we wanted to bring forth the most legitimate scientist analysis that we could put forth before you to show the legitimacy of what our argument will be. I'd like to call upon our civil engineer, and perhaps he may ask our clerk to share the screen so he can present the plans.
Sure. Thank you, attorneys. Mr. Chair, board members, Matt Leidner with Civil Design Group, civil engineer for the project. And as the attorney had requested, if I could please have permission to share my screen, I could share the plan as I give you a brief overview of the site plan.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Screen sharing is active.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Hopefully everybody can see this now. So I just confirm that they can see the plan?
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you very much. Okay, so just a brief overview, and then happy to answer any engineering related questions in more detail if there are any. But so the proposal here is at the corner. I imagine the board members and most people are aware, but just for anyone who's coming up to speed, Pleasant Street's running along the bottom of the page here. North is up, and Pennsylvania Avenue is along the right side of the page. So we've highlighted the lot in green just for clarity for tonight's presentation. It's approximately a 2-acre lot at the corner of Pleasant and Pennsylvania in the C5 district. And the proposal is for a 4,000 square foot convenience store building, which will also contain a quick serve restaurant with drive-through. So the building, the proposed building is right here, this dark outline rectangle. And then out front along Pleasant Street, 6 fueling islands for a total of 12 fueling positions under canopy and associated infrastructure, underground storage tanks, et cetera. There will be 3 curb cuts as proposed to serve the project. The farthest westerly curb cut on Pleasant Street right here is proposed to be a right in, right out only, so it's restricted movement. The farther easterly curb cut on Pleasant is proposed to be a full access, and the proposed curb cut on Pennsylvania as well is proposed to be a full access curb cut. So 3 curb cuts proposed, 46 proposed parking spaces, which conforms and exceeds the zoning requirement for number of parking spaces. And of course, should this plan get approved tonight and advance further into a full site plan, the project will include the associated stormwater infrastructure and landscape improvements that would be typical of a site plan of this nature. So with that, I'll turn it back to the attorney, and I'm happy to step in at any point to answer any questions. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to add, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I do not believe that this particular site, this locus, is subject to the restrictions of the bylaw being 27-24 regarding buffer zones. And the reason I do not believe that is because I had continued to stare at this in the last week. It always concerned me with the westerly side of the locus that adjoins the roadway into the park. I said, this is an asphalt roadway that's been blocked off for dozens and dozens of years. What purpose would the buffer zone serve? So the more I thought about the plan, I went to City Hall and delved through the records of the assessor's office to follow up on a thought I had. And lo and behold, I found that the park was established in 1927. And I submitted those records, albeit late, to the board. And I later discovered that established in 1905. So clearly, a subsequent parcel of land cannot now impose restrictions on something that was there prior in time. For those reasons, and that's supported by a line of cases in statute, this particular lot would not be subject to the restrictions under that particular ordinance. That being said, however, we are still willing to comply with what the dictate of the ordinances are on the rear and abide by a 100-foot setback. We would also still have a buffer zone on the northerly side, I'm sorry, the westerly side. And we were asking for relief, and I think that was mentioned in the introduction of 38 feet. And we would also have the screening to protect the view so it doesn't offend the neighbors. The light would be shined in such fashion that it wouldn't affect anything other than this gas station. We will comply with all of those issues and concerns that normally arise. The next elephant in the room, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, is always traffic. And I don't care if we're on a country road or on a main thoroughfare, traffic always comes up as something that is going to be unnerving and unwanted. The issue with traffic is, and according to the statute, whether or not that particular use and having traffic with it causes a quote unquote substantial detriment to the public good. Not a more of an annoyance or an aggravation, but is it a substantial detriment? So I will turn to our traffic engineer to ask him to summarize this 400-page report. And I think for the benefit of the board members, between pages 33 and 36 was the short 4-page version of this. So if I may ask the, excuse me, traffic engineer to step forward and give us his analysis and conclusions of this, it would be appreciated.
Good evening, everyone. May I share my screen? I made a quick PowerPoint.
Screen sharing is active.
Thank you very much. Can everyone see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Arsenault, and I'm representing Vanass & Associates. We prepared the transportation impact assessment in support of the project. Tonight, I just want to give you a very quick overview of the report and its findings. We prepared our study in consultation with the city and according to MassDOT and industry standards for the preparation of these reports. We collected the raw traffic data in April and adjusted it to account for any COVID impacts to traffic. Based on our analysis, we found that the construction of the gas station and convenience market would not result in a significant impact to traffic within the study area, understanding and acknowledging the existing operating conditions at the intersections today. Most importantly, the lines of sight at the driveway exceed the recommended minimum distance for safe operation. Just to orient ourselves, as Matthew talked about a little bit, our site is the yellow highlighted area here. We have Pleasant Street immediately to the south of us. We're between the Parkway and Pennsylvania Avenue. Reynolds Highway is off to the west a bit, and Prospect Street is east. Excuse me. This is a less busy schematic of our study area. Reynolds Highway at Pleasant Street intersection is signalized, as everyone knows, with the other ones being unsignalized. There are sidewalks along almost all the study area roadways, with crosswalks along at least one leg of every study area intersection. The roads are generally 12 feet wide or wider. All of that is very typical for an urbanized area. Now, as far as the project itself, I just want to go through this table in a little bit more detail and bring up a few items. First, when we performed this study, the project was envisioned to include a car wash. That has now been removed. So these trips and the resulting impacts would reduce a little bit. I would not expect it to result in a substantial decrease to the overall findings of the report itself. I just wanted to make the board aware that these were slightly more conservative than what we would expect presently. As far as the base trips, we use statistics published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. That's the industry standards for trip generation. We use those to develop the anticipated traffic characteristics. Now, as would be somewhat expected, a good portion of the trips associated with this project would include people already traveling along Pleasant Street as a part of their regular daily commute. They would drive by, pull in to get fuel and a coffee, and then continue on to their destination. The technical term, if you can even call it that, for these trips is a pass-by trip. They're not new trips along the roadway itself with the sole purpose of getting to this project. They're trips that are going to be on Pleasant Street, the surrounding roadways, regardless. These trips end up working out to approximately represent up to 65% of the total trips associated with the project. And we came up with these again using the models and information gathered by the ITE. At the end of our calculations, we came up with just over 65 new trips headed in and out of the site in the weekday morning peak hour, 99 during the weekday evening peak hour, and 93 on a Saturday afternoon.
That's per hour, correct?
For the 1 hour, yes. The rush hour, the 60 minutes. For the new trips, we disperse them along the study area as shown, the bulk going to and from the north on Reynolds, a good bit going to and from the east on Pleasant, and most of the rest headed south on West Street, and the remainder kind of scattered throughout. Now, I just want to begin to wrap up and talk a little bit more about our recommendations. The first slide deals mostly with access of the site. This is, for the most part, typical of every project we work on. One specific thing I do want to call out is the installation of a turn restriction sign to reinforce the operations at the right in, right out driveway on Pleasant Street. We suggest putting the legal manual of uniform traffic control devices sign, the official sign, not, I've seen people make self-made signs, homemade signs. We want the official real sign, something that quite frankly is enforceable by the Brockton Police Department in the unlikely event that people do begin to sneak out. We also want those official signs for any of the one-way or do not enter signs needed inside the site to assign safe and efficient movements, specifically along that drive-through. Off-site at the Reynolds and Pleasant Street intersection, we did notice that some improvements in crashes have been occurring over the past few years, but we would offer to develop a road safety audit to give the city a playbook on potential improvements that can further improve safety out there, and also to provide some of the immediate improvements that the RSA discovers. We would also retime that signal, including the adjacent signal to the north, to optimize the traffic signal timing at the intersection, excuse me, and to tighten up some of the delays, cut down on some of the long line of cars that are at that Reynolds Pleasant intersection. And lastly, we suggest the implementation of some sort of a transportation demand management program for the employees to hopefully reduce the amount of some of the single occupant vehicles headed into and out of the site wherever possible. Again, these were just taken from the report itself. We performed, and they're not meant to be exhaustive. I just kind of wanted to touch on them that evening and acknowledge them. With that, I would like to thank everyone for their patience this evening, and I am available for any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask if the board has any questions of Mr. Arsenault or myself at this time before we move on.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
So there's another project going on around the corner with Marriott, and we sent them over to get the blessing of the Parks Department in regards to the buffer. Have you seen the Parks Department?
I have spoken to Mr. Tim Carpenter.
And the result of that was?
He gave his assent to the project when I had agreed that I would agree to the terms and conditions and adopt those that which were previously conditioned by this board.
Okay, just because in symmetry to anything else going around, you know, what we call our crown jewel, and I don't think any of the other board members have heard from the Parks Department on this in regards to any buffer zone for any potential future use of that access road inside the park.
Mr. Chair, just Mr. Nezarella, Mr. Carpenter is on this this call here, and he can refute or talk about this situation also. Thank you.
Well, he can, I'd certainly welcome the chime in, but as I said several months ago, I had called him, told him what the ambition was, and he said, provided you adopt and agree to the terms that were previously granted, he would be fine. So that's why I was somewhat hesitant when I stated that it is my belief we do not have to abide by any buffer zone requirement under the law. However, because I made the representation to Mr. Carpenter, I would stand by that and ask my clients to stand by it. And I would welcome Mr. Carpenter's input if there's anything different in his memory than what I just stated to the board.
So, good evening, everyone. Tim Carpenter, Superintendent of Parks for the city. You know, there was a previous project scheduled on that parcel. There were stipulations put together by the Park Commission. I do recall Mr. Nezarella agreeing to abide by those stipulations. I did hear something about the use of the old access road through the park, which was not part of that any of those stipulations. There was some work to be done in kind to that old entrance to the park, but there was no agreement to be able to utilize that old entrance exitway from the park.
Yeah, I don't think I suggested any use of that. All I stated was I didn't see where it had been used for any reason, but it's of no purpose to us. And I do not believe I suggested we would like to use it. So I agree completely with what Mr. Carpenter said.
So I apologize for being somewhat, I guess I didn't know this was going to be on the agenda for this evening's meeting. And so I don't have a list of what those stipulations were. Like I say, there was some in-kind work to be performed on the old entrance. I know there was, and again, I'm working from memory here, but there was to be a certain amount of buffer, man-made buffer planted along the backside of that parcel and the side of that parcel. And there were some stipulations, I believe, around the use of mini mesh fencing to prevent any debris from blowing from that parcel into the park. That's all I can kind of remember off the top of my head.
Mr. Carpenter, if I could just ask you a question, Mr. Carpenter, sorry, Mr. Nazarella.
All right.
Do you have any concern of the nature of the business being so close to the park?
So that was, I guess, the other thing I didn't know about I guess it wasn't clear what the development was in my initial conversation with Mr. Nazarella about a gas station going in there. I guess there would be, and again, you know, I can't speak for the commission because obviously that's individuals. I'm simply the executive. I'm not a member of the park commission. But I would I would imagine those stipulations may have in fact changed if there was even a letter of support, knowing that it was a gas station.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Again, I can't speak for the Park Commission, but I don't believe when Attorney Nezarella and I initially spoke that I knew that it was going to be a gas station. Simply, there was looking to be development there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question just in regards to also environmental impacts that might be happening or could happen. Maybe if you can tell us a little bit about just like how groundwater will be impacted or won't be impacted, or what type of runoff conditions might happen post this build.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. So in terms of groundwater and runoff from stormwater from this facility, if we're fortunate to have this approved tonight and move on to a full site plan review, the site plan would include a full stormwater analysis and calculations to show mitigation of any increase in runoff that would occur based on this development. So keep in mind the site as it previously existed did contain structures, did contain significant amounts of pavement. It was a developed site, and so any increase in that coverage, though, would be offset through mitigation practices such as underground stormwater management, above ground stormwater management, infiltration systems, et cetera. And the state requirements that we would have to adhere to in that regard one of the standards actually is specific to groundwater recharge mitigation, and we would need to meet that standard, and we would. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
I may add, Mr. Spinola, those are all issues that usually fall within the purview of the planning when we get to site plan review. That's when we kind of address all of those aspects, which are fair questions, but they're vetted out at that point in time. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Carpenter was right. I think I did indicate to him what the nature of the business would be because I knew it at that time. But we also talked, I think he left out a rather significant issue, that there would be a substantial donation from the applicant to the city for use in the reparation of the park or for whatever other use they have. And that was an amount previously established by the prior applicant. We indicated we would comply with that as well. So with that being said, if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to continue entertaining them.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so this would be more towards the traffic end of things. Obviously, as the fire chief, my deepest concerns are one of our furthest response times and most difficult places to get to would probably be the area of Oak Street Extension and Pearl Street. One of the main thoroughfares we go through on a regular basis is Pleasant to Reynolds Memorial to get to that area. This intersection is overly congested as it is for us to get our fire apparatus through at any time of the day, especially morning and late afternoon. I see where these curb cuts are placed on Pennsylvania Avenue. And it doesn't appear in any way that it wouldn't be able to take a left-hand turn now out of Pennsylvania Avenue onto Pleasant or a right-hand turn onto going westerly or easterly on Pleasant. That will clearly, obviously, add to congestion. I see where you put the proposed 15 long stop bar. I've been in this city for 49 years of my life, and I've never seen, they don't stop in front of fire stations. This will not work in front of a gas station, I can assure you. I do see how you've angled the discharge out of the parking lot in the most westerly portion towards Reynolds Memorial, and that's obviously appreciative. But again, now we're dealing with two into the lot and out of the lot on Pleasant Street, where we had one before with the previous property. And now we've also added Pennsylvania Avenue into that as well. I know, and I don't know, as a traffic analyst, I don't know if you drive around Brockton much, but your proposal with this traffic plan obviously was a lot of work, but I think sometimes the nature of what we see and what comes out of the numbers that come out of this are night and day, quite frankly. So I don't know how you can convince me this isn't going to be an issue, but I see it as a major issue.
Chief, I would add on to that, we listened to the study and the proposed things they would do with the light. However, you're going to get a balloon effect at that intersection. You're going to build up the population of cars, and then you're going to try and reinsert them into that already congested area. So yes, they may be there anyways. However, you're putting them in a holding pattern just to reinsert them into more traffic. The intersection is troubled.
Before Mr. Arsenault responds, I would like to just respond to the chief that when I had looked at the plan, I thought the curb cut on Pennsylvania would ease the situation. If you in the board feel differently, I will be happy to eliminate the curb cut on Pennsylvania Avenue. So you can consider that modification to be done. Andrew, if you'd like to respond to Mr. Sweeney's comment.
Yes, both to Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Chief Nardelli. I understand. I understand what you're saying. I do want to point out that the delays would be not experienced on Pleasant Street, not on the main line through traffic, but on motorists trying to exit the project. That's where the bulk of the delays would be featured. I think we have less than a second.
I think what happened. I think what happens there, and I speak from experience because I stood there for 30 minutes in recent times and saw what people do in that intersection. And when you do get a delay in traffic with the amount of volume that you have there, you get people trying to be the hero and go all the way around, and it causes major issues. This is the problem that many Brockton residents are having right now. So by all means, if you can answer that.
I guess I'm just not sure. What do you mean by all the way?
I'm sorry, all the way.
The way around.
So once you get a holding pattern and people can't move and it's congested, then you get the wild moves by drivers. This is what I personally witnessed at that intersection.
Like a weaving.
So if one cycle of that light doesn't go through and they're held up in the middle of the intersection, the other side of the intersection is obviously upset and they start doing wild moves. They start to get through by means of just going around everybody. I'm not quite sure I heard any response to this.
I'm not. I guess I can't.
If I can add to what Mr. Sweeney's saying, and I don't mean to, but we're getting a lot of pushbacks from traffic in another project that we're working on through the fire department. And the numbers I get from our analysts are outlandish, what something like this will create. What you're telling me is this is not going to create the problems that we think it's going to. And from two different traffic analysts in similar environments, I just don't see how we get such different numbers or different 1 second versus 30 seconds. Not just the traffic congestion for the residents of the city. My biggest concern is getting my fire apparatus to the area of Good Samaritan Medical Center, getting my fire apparatus to a very dangerous intersection at Oak Street Extension in North Pearl. This is, as the chief, that's the reason I'm here. And those are deep concerns of mine getting through that intersection now. Not with this project in place, which will add a lot more to this, I feel. You call them drive-through places. I don't see many gas stations like that. We have major issues diagonally across the street at Pleasant Street, right at the end of Reynolds Memorial, with the gas station that's there that creates havoc on a daily basis. So
Coming out of the city, Chief, if I could, coming out of the city, that would only add to the delay of getting emergency vehicles into the hospital. I just don't see it unless you can speak on it.
All right, let me just interrupt a little bit here. I want to tell the board members, let's confine some of this to our deliberations. I think at this point here, we need to be asking very specific questions of the petitioner. I have a question that I would like to get straightened out. What is a quick drive-through restaurant? Is that a Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, a Dunkin', it's a Dunkin' Donut.
Okay, and if you were familiar with the last petitioners that were before us quite some time ago, there was very, very strong opposition to having any access from Pennsylvania Avenue, which is a residential street. And
yes,
some agreements that were made in the last one, and that's all mute, it's all gone. We're brand new looking at this. I will just let you know, just for my recollection, that there was very, very strong opposition to any additional traffic on Pennsylvania Avenue. The other thing that I don't know if your traffic analyst took this into consideration, but right at the driveway that goes into the drugstore, Walgreens, there is a BAT bus stop right there. And when that bus stops to let passengers embark or disembark from the bus, all the traffic that's behind that bus has to come to a full stop. So coming off Route 27, the traffic that's bearing left to go east on Pleasant Street forms 2 lanes of traffic, and then it has to reform into 1 lane of traffic. None of those cars can get by that bus when it's stopped. The traffic that's going west on Pleasant Street opens up from a single lane into 3 lanes. So at one point there's 5 lanes of traffic that are going into the intersection of Pleasant and West, and 2 lanes that are going east on Pleasant Street. The point I want to make is, I haven't seen anything here in the traffic about what happens when that bus stops and all the traffic backs up behind the bus. I have personally seen the traffic backed up across West Street so that when the light turns green for West Street, the cars cannot get out of West Street because they're all stacked up on Pleasant Street coming out of the Route 27 cutoff. So that is a major bottleneck right there. And the other thing that you've got to realize is that even some of the proposals that are being made here, such as retiming the lights at Pleasant and West Street, we as a zoning board cannot tell the state that they have to change the timing of those lights. The city of Brockton does not control those lights, the state does. And we have no authority to compel them to act, to do anything as far as changing the timing of those lights. So I think whatever discussion we have tonight has to hinge upon what is there. And we need to be very careful on some things relative to traffic that are going to come under the purview of the Traffic Commission. So that's what I wanted to say. I want to make sure everybody understands that what's going in here is a gas station, a convenience store, and a Dunkin' Donuts. And when you look at the volume of traffic that goes by this, I spent a lot of time going through this book, to be honest with you. I guess I got, there's 17,629 cars here. In the afternoon, 8,660. There's a huge number of cars that go through this intersection. It's huge. It's probably the biggest intersection traffic-wise in the city of Brockton. So those are a couple of the comments I wanted to make sure the presenters understand, that we have a concern with the volume of traffic, the in and out of this place, and when traffic has to stop because of bus stops, or if somebody wanted to go east on Pleasant Street, coming off 27 cutoff, and they wanted to take a left turn into this gas station, they have to cross 3 lanes of traffic to get in that driveway. And if there's 3 lanes of traffic that are stopped that won't allow this vehicle to turn left, that is totally going to back up all the traffic onto the 27 cutoff. So that was just a couple of things I want to make sure we get clarified here on this traffic issue. That I drive there all day long. I'm very, very familiar with what goes on at that intersection. And the bus situation, I think, is very critical. And I think as far as the petitioner is concerned, last time around here, there was strong opposition to anything going in on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Chief, if I could, one last thing. Is there a plan for runoff gas, anything like that, considering our location next to the park?
I believe those will all fall under the safety measures in operating and managing the gas station.
Could you highlight those, please?
Matthew, is that something you can address?
Sure. So the gas dispenser area, as you can probably picture at a gas station, has those grooves. They're called positive limiting barriers around them. So for a small spill type event, if it were to get to that point, those would be your first line of defense. And then subsequent to that, the stormwater system would be designed with measures within it to trap any spill. And the way we do that is we put sumps in the catch basins with oil separator hoods that, should any product get into those, they would be the petroleum products lighter than water, floats to the top. It would get trapped in those systems. And then secondly, those would go through a water quality unit, again, with a sump in it with actually more of a capacity to hold petroleum products. So there's several lines of defense in combating any spill for this site next to a park or any modern gas station for that matter. There's many safety factors built into the design.
And I guess another question would be, how many underground storage tanks and how close to the park, or a neighbor?
Right. So the underground storage tanks on the proposed plan, I believe there's 2 underground storage tanks, and they are approximately, they're on the west side, so they're farthest away from any of the abutting residences as can be on this site. Intentionally, and they are adjacent to the park entrance road. I guess that is blocked off at this point. They're not in the rear of the site. They're on the west side next to that entrance road. I don't know the exact distance. I don't want to quote a number that's not correct, but it's somewhere between say 15 and 20 feet off the lot line at that location to the tanks.
How long is a storage tank good for? How often do you have to dig it up and replace it?
So that's something that the modern tanks are fiberglass reinforced plastic. They're dual wall. They have a secondary containment system in them. They're very high tech. These are not the old steel tanks of the day that you hear about leaks occurring. There's literature out there that even in seismic zones, like out in California, for instance, these tanks have shown almost undocumentable failure rates because of the systems built into place with these tanks. So they're highly advanced. They have fail-safe measures within the tank technology to prevent leaks. So basically these tanks are, they're almost like a tank within a tank. We call them dual wall, but it's really a tank that is contained within another tank, and that space between the 2 tanks is monitored so that should any leakage occur in the primary tank, it would be detected and can be addressed at that point. So it's an advanced system. The applicants are on tonight. They may be able to offer some more specifics relative to their system, but I can tell you that the tanks these days are modern and advanced. And I'm not aware of any issues with any of these similar tanks on any projects I've worked on over the years. For 20 or so years. Several of which I've worked on 4 gas stations in Brockton up to this point, and that have been very successful in that regard.
Sir, do you know the life expectancy of the tank?
I couldn't say, no.
Okay,
Perhaps
thank
the
you.
applicants could say the life expectancy.
Jason, would you know? He may not hear me now.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, with this brand new system, like the way things are now, there's no, there's not really any way that we can get any solid data as far as how long they would go.
So the only way you would know is if there was a problem?
Or the alarm would tell us first.
Well, I mean, everything is alarm there, so if there was any type of leakage or anything, that would definitely be, taken care of
And it would be on the
quickly.
Okay, so I'm assuming if, when that stuff fails, we have no idea when to replace them. Electronics fails, but if we know that, it's at its life expectancy, that might, preempt you to change it sooner rather than later. And then finding out that you had a malfunction in the electronic equipment.
Matt,
So that's why I ask.
Matt, is there an idea as to how soon something like that would be changed out? I mean, is there some type of
That's what I'm asking you.
Right, so the longevity of these types of systems, it's sort of like in the stormwater world, instead of using corrugated metal pipe, now we use corrugated plastic pipe typically. These pipes and these systems, the longevity of them outlast the life expectancy of the site, in terms of the development. So I can't put a number of years on it. They're meant to last many, 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 many years. The equipment is serviced regularly. It's maintained. I don't know if this particular applicant, if they do it in-house or have a company that they contract to do that, but it's a highly maintained system in order
very regulated. I mean, we're under strict, we have to comply with certain environmental audits all the time. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. I mean, I think it's, and then the way that
I just want to chime in here for a second. I think we need to keep moving along on this, but I will tell you from my past experience, these tanks are highly regulated by the state. They have a tank within a tank, and they are fully alarmed. If something should go wrong, there's plenty of warning that the interior tank may have failed, and that's why they have the exterior tank. So I don't have an answer for how long this is going to last, but this is certainly much, much better than it was when we had the old steel tanks, that the only time you realize something was wrong is when you polluted the ground. So these are highly regulated. I don't know if it's what the time frame is, but I will tell you it's highly regulated. It's watched constantly. It's alarmed, and it's a lot different than it was back when they had steel tanks. And just for your edification, the plan shows that these tanks are located 13.5 feet from the property line on the west side towards that driveway.
All right, Chief, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman Galligan, in furtherance of your earlier inquiry as well, you had asked a couple of questions. And you mentioned about the bus, and I will agree with you. I've been behind that bus and I see what it does. It narrows down to one lane. And I often thought, why is the BAT bus parked at that? Why do they stop at that particular area? So whether or not this business is introduced or any other business introduced on that lot, that BAT bus is going to continue to cause a problem. And I don't think we as private entities have any control over that. That perhaps should be something addressed with BAT, because they certainly cause a backlog there and an issue. And the second point is you mentioned concern about Pennsylvania Avenue, and I may have alluded to Chief Nardelli that we were willing to close that off. Again, I thought in my non-technical mind that would make the situation easier. If it doesn't, we will waive the curb cut request on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Okay, any other questions from the board members? Are we pretty near wrapped up on questions? I'd like to move this along. Board members, what do you think? You ready? You good? All right, if that's the case, I am going to close that portion of the hearing. I'm now going to open it up to anyone that wants to speak in favor of granting this variance? Is there anyone that wants to speak in favor?
I see none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing, and now I'm going to open it up for anyone that wants to speak in opposition. Now, I expect that we are going to have a number of people that want to speak based upon the information that has come to me. I would respectfully ask that if one of the speakers can address any issues that the group may have, any subsequent person that wants to speak, I would hope we would not keep regurgitating the same concerns. So I don't know if there are a number of people that may want to speak, whether you have selected somebody who want to speak for you. But based upon what you heard tonight, this is your opportunity to speak. But I just ask, out of concern for the board and the petitioners, please don't just keep regurgitating the same information. So I'll open that up. Is there anyone that wants to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chair, I have one that has his hand raised, Danny De Silva.
Okay. Mr.
Hi.
Silva.
Good evening, Chairman, board members. So I have a few issues with this development, of course. So just the background of myself, I've lived here on and off my entire life. I'm 31 years old. My father bought this property in 1978 when he returned from Fort Hood after retiring from the Army. So there's been a few issues just as the traffic is now. In 2012, I was struck by a truck crossing the street. I suffered a broken back, a broken femur, and brain damage while crossing the street. The issue was the driver was texting while also crossing over a double yellow line to pass traffic on the left because it was backed up at the light. That's issue number one. Issue number two is there's no reason that we need another gas station in this area. There are 12 gas stations within 1.2 miles of Pennsylvania Ave. Okay. I know the guys over at Red's Dairy don't seem to think that gas stations are a destination, but they are. You know, like I said, there's 12 gas stations within 1.2 miles of Pennsylvania Ave, 4 within quarter mile to a half a mile. I go to one. GD's, it used to be Cumberland Farms years ago. That's the only gas station I go to. There's 3 other options within the same distance. You know, it doesn't matter on price. It doesn't matter on what they're offering there. I go to the same gas station. Also, I forget who had mentioned it, but they had said that it was an opinion that gas stations oppose some type of hazard to the residential areas surrounding it. There are numerous articles here. I'll list a couple of the sites that provide information on how hazardous gas stations as your neighbor can be. They are from CEDS.org, scientificamerican.com, fossilfuel.com, safety.lovetoknow.com, and environmentalpollutioncenters.org. They all pretty much state the same thing. Gas stations are hazardous to residential areas, anything within 100 feet. They raise a number of compounds injurious to human health, consisting of benzene, toluene, I'm sorry if I mispronounced some of these, ethylbenzene, and xylene. A few of these compounds are known to be cancer-causing compounds. You know, so they're obviously not very healthy for any of us to be living there. Not only with the traffic that is obviously going to be created on Pleasant Street, but especially if the curb cuts are allowed on Pennsylvania Ave, I mean, we get enough people that use Pennsylvania Ave just to turn around when they miss their turn. And that can be hazardous enough. I have 2 young children. They ride their bikes, they play basketball, play catch, they go for walks, you know, and just from people pulling down the street to turn around, they're in a hurry, whatever the case is, they pull down the street, you know, at a high rate of speed, and it can be pretty dangerous just the way it is. To add even more traffic and more people coming to this area would be detrimental to everybody's safety in the area. You know, I have children that have pre-existing health conditions such as asthma and other things that will be complicated by having a gas station so close. And as somebody else had said in the chat, you know, it's just overall going to lower the quality of life for every resident in the area, regardless if it's Pennsylvania Ave, Pleasant Street, West Street, Troy Street, which is right on the other side of the Irving gas station and GD gas station, Pool Street, which is also right there. So, you know, there's a lot of things I could touch on. You know, I could really write a book. I know there's a time limit on things. We'd like to get everybody to get a word in. So I guess I'll wrap up now. But those are a few of the main things I want to touch on.
What is your home? What is your address? Where do you live?
18 Pennsylvania Ave. Me and my fiance bought this house from my parents about 3 years ago.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak in opposition?
I would. Can you hear me?
Certainly.
Hi. I would actually like to read an email that I had sent this morning. I'm going to try to make it quick because a lot of topics people had already talked
what
about.
you want to say, please.
Okay, so my name is Brittany Powell. I own property at 18 Pennsylvania Ave. Behind my house is this empty lot. I am writing this in response to the variance request by Red Jerry for the address 609-627 Pleasant Street. As a gas station attendant for over 10 years, I oppose this variance request for a number of reasons. Some of those reasons, and it was already touched upon, was the location. There is no need for another gas station in this area. You know, within 1.1 miles of Pennsylvania Ave, there are already 11 gas stations. To me, this will just cause nothing but more traffic than there already is in the neighborhood, which in turn is bound to cause more accidents. It also poses a threat. I could have missed it. I didn't hear anybody touch on this. But for anybody traveling on foot, including the children who walk to and from school every day, including my own daughter, she walks home from school from Brockton High. And it's dangerous as is. A lot of times I have to meet her at the end of Pennsylvania Ave and you know, like help her across Pleasant Street because it's any time of day there is traffic on Pleasant Street. In the 5 years that I have lived at this address, I have seen more accidents on Pleasant Street than I can count. I have personally had to call 911 for these accidents on more than one occasion. I have seen numerous people pulled over by police for speeding or not following traffic laws as is. I could only imagine how much worse it will become when there is more traffic being brought to this neighborhood. You know, my fiance had touched upon the hazards of, you know, having a gas station directly behind you or next to you or whatever the case may be. And, you know, like I said, I work at Cumberland Farms. I'm a manager, so I work with gas. You know, fires, explosions. I know that breathing in gas fumes, you know, can cause headaches and dizziness and nausea. And, you know, this lot is behind my house. So my main concern is, you know, is this a risk that my 5-year-old is going to be, you know, at when she wants to play in her backyard? Is that something that I have to worry about because there's a gas station right there? You know, my oldest daughter already has asthma, so that's a major concern of mine. I think disruption, I haven't heard anybody speak upon that, but I work in a gas station that has food. So one of my concerns was that I'm assuming there must be a dumpster on site. Almost every gas station that has some type of food has some type of rodent or roach problem. I know this from my own store. I'm concerned about that. If it's not taken care of, you know, is this going to become a problem for myself and for my neighbors? Loud music, loitering, and robberies. That was a main concern of mine too, because, like I said, my house is this building is behind my house. So if somebody robs this building, you have like a bunch of nice houses right here. Is that gonna, make the crime rate go up? I mean, these are just all
But those are all
concerns that I
potential.
have. Fuel delivery trucks are loud. They're noisy. How many deliveries are they planning on getting a week? That was just another question of mine. Not to mention that this is also impeding on countless wildlife habitats, and that poses a major risk itself. So in the end, this is my home. This is where I am raising my family, as are my neighbors. We are not opposed to putting something there, but it should be something reasonable and safe. The residential neighbors who have to live right next door to this, I feel as though they should be considered. I do not see a need for another gas station when we already have two directly in this area, that are both 24 hours, may I add. We should be able to raise our families in a safe environment. And me personally, with this proposal, I don't feel as if I'm safe, and I don't feel as if my children are safe. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. If somebody else would like to speak in opposition, please take into account all of the issues that we've heard, unless you have something new to add.
Mr. Chair, there's a Brenda that would like to say something.
Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
We're here with my neighbor. She had issues logging in, so she's joining us. We're neighbors. We echo the concerns of safety. I'm not going to go over all over again. My son also is severely asthmatic, so the fumes, it is an issue, and they did acknowledge when we met with at North High with the proposers, they did said that there's nothing they could do about fumes, so that's a major concern. The park is an issue. If we go back, the same thing. Traffic is the biggest issue. We want no additional traffic on Pennsylvania Avenue. It's a tiny street. We can do one more. And I heard everybody has issues with the traffic. So I understand everybody understands that issue. And that is it. Part of the building, the ordinance, it's so that the neighborhoods are cohesively. We can coexist with each other. That lot, it is permitted for business offices, which makes sense because they go in when we're not here. They leave, they go home, and we're here. In office, nobody goes to an office at the same time. Nobody has an appointment at the same time. The traffic is staggered, so that helps. So it does make sense for what is permitted, not what they are seeking. Like our neighbor said, we're not opposed to having something built there, but it should be something that it's built, that it's part of what it was initially permitted for, because when it became, we were absorbed into a commercial zone. It was residential, eventually became commercial. So that's one, those are the issues. It's all the neighbors have the same thinking. Here's my other neighbor. She wants to speak a little bit.
Okay, Judith McKenzie, 21 Pennsylvania Avenue. I agree with all of the points in opposition that have been made. I won't go back over them. I have to say that at this time of year, with Christmas shopping at the mall and the extra traffic it adds, it takes me, coming from downtown to Pennsylvania Avenue, it takes me 7 or 8 rotations of the traffic light to get to my own street. We don't need any additional traffic. The other thing, which was a point that was made at a previous hearing about a different project, was having a curb cut on Pennsylvania Avenue is also an issue when there's snow and snow removal, because the street is naturally narrowed. It's a dead end street. And so with the big snow banks, it's going to make getting out onto onto Pleasant Street more difficult from Pennsylvania Avenue. And it's going to cause additional traffic hazards and additional accidents. We as the neighbors are not opposed to a reasonable project there. I would like to see every effort made to preserve Field Park. As somebody called it a jewel before, and I think it really is. I think Brockton is very blessed to have it. And I don't think anything should encroach on the park, including oil spillage, water pollution, or any of the things that might come out as a result of this. And I think the quality of life, I like living in Brockton. I don't want my quality of life reduced to get a few more tax dollars from a gas station that we don't need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak in opposition? If not, I have two letters that have been forwarded.
I do. Mr. We have a Patrick Quinn that would like to speak.
Sorry, go ahead. Please identify yourself.
Yes, my name's Patrick Quinn. I live at 78 Addison Street. I agree with all the sentiment that's been said already against this project. I just wanted to say that I do believe there are legitimate reasons not to allow this type of business from being built next to the DW Field Park. So therefore, I want to state that I am against this project. And I'll also state that I believe there are legal avenues the city could use to stop this type of development. And so I just want to once again say that this is not the type of development that the city of Brockton needs right now next to our city of park. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, is there anyone else?
I'd like to speak if I don't know where to raise my hand.
No, that's fine, Mr. De Silva. You can go ahead.
Okay, so Mike De Silva here. How you doing, Chairman, and the rest of the board? We've been doing this for well over 5 years now, and we would just like somebody to come to us and say, you know, we found a really good project to put on that lot, falls within the C5. I think maybe a real estate development, maybe some condos or duplexes would really work there. But at the proposal that we're getting tonight, which I have to say is been put together pretty shabbily, because for not to be talking to the Parks Department and not being on the same page as Tim, I just don't understand it. And the traffic study, yeah, you can run all the numbers you want, but as you well know, until you go through that traffic center, through that intersection several times a day, you don't really know what the traffic's like. And like people have said, this time of year, it's even worse. Somebody mentioned, I think Mr. Nazarella mentioned, well, you know, there's you can't limit the number of gas stations in a general vicinity. Well, you know, or license them. Well, we don't license 3 liquor stores on the same block. So why would we give 3 gas stations the right to operate within the same 500 yards of each other? So that's another thing. And I really want to say that DW Field Park, it was Barbara Shinnick, myself and my wife and a couple other people who were on the DW Field Park Association, which we created back at the beginning. It was Barbara Shinnick and I forget, Miss Poole maybe, did all the work to put DW Field Park on the National Historic Register. It is not only a gem, it is on the National Historic Register of Parks because it is a homestead park. Same person who did the Emerald Necklace and Central Park in New York. So DW Field had homes, designed landscaping. That was the reason why it got on the national parks as a protected national treasure. Let's see, I got some more notes maybe. Well, you know, I think everybody's really said everything. I really think the proposal that they brought forward tonight was not done very well. I don't think they've covered a lot of bases. And another mention is just over the property line in DW Field Park, there is wetlands. So they would have to do a wetland study to see how close the wetlands have moved since the last proposal. But there are wetlands just over that roadway where there used to be the Ellis Brett swimming area. Is now, that's all wetlands area back there. So any type of spillage, drainage, or anything that gets into the wetlands would be very hazardous to the environment. Chief, you should know the traffic that's going to be added to this is going to be astronomically increased to what it already is. Plus, I would think, Chief, that you should know not only about the traffic issues that you guys have, but being a fire chief, I'm sure you are well versed in the health issues that come along with that type of development. Nobody even talked about driveways. A lot of people, and I'm sure you can ask Brittany, a lot of people out there pumping their car and they drive away with the hose in their tank, still in the tank. They drive away with it, pulls off that hose, that big leakage, not going to fill in on the drainage collection. So there's many, many aspects that have not been addressed. And this proposal, I would like to see denied. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. What is your address?
My address, I actually live on the Cape now, but as a concerned grandfather and father, I have family that lives there. That is the family home. That's where we have our Christmases and our Thanksgivings.
Okay, I was just
Everything
curious
else.
to see if you might be a direct abutter.
I do want to mention one more thing. Thank you for mentioning the direct abutter. You did receive the letter from Bill.
Yes, when you're done, I'm going to reference that, yes.
Yeah, okay, because he was unable to make it tonight. He had some training at work that he couldn't get out of. And I'd appreciate it if you could reference that. I think he's stated a lot of things very eloquently. He used to be a freelance writer, so he did a pretty good job.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak, or are we all set for now?
I do not see any. Oh, I have one. Well, we have Councilor Azak. You're going to handle that in a second, Chair.
Go ahead.
Councilor Azak.
Okay. Hold on just 1 second, Counselor. Let me just finish up on speaking in opposition, then I'm going to call on you as an elected official. Is that all right with you?
Yes, Chief, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, hold on for 1 second. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in opposition?
I see none, Mr. Chair.
All right, seeing none, we have 2 letters that have come in that have not been addressed. One is from William Morgan. He references pretty much all of the things that we have talked about tonight. I'm not going to read the entire document that he sent to us, but he is in opposition to this, and principally because of traffic. The next document that has been forwarded is from Mr. Kenneth and Brenda Ibarra, 15 Pennsylvania Avenue. Did they speak tonight?
I do not think so.
Yes. You did speak.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I thought you did. All right. So that covers the letters that have come in.
Could I add one thing? Could I add one thing, Chairman? Bill
Very
Morgan.
quickly.
Yeah, Bill Morgan's a direct abutter. Just want to point that out. He's a direct abutter.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. And now, is there any elected official that wants to speak on the issue? Councilor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Shirley Azak, Ward 7 City Councilor. So I would just like to go on the record stating that I was contacted by the applicant, Red's Dairy, back in, when this was first proposed. And I did suggest that we have a community meeting, which we, thanks to Attorney Nazarella, we organized it at North Junior High back in the beginning of November. So a lot of these concerns were brought up, and they were addressed at the meeting. And I put my trust in the board's in the board's decision. I just, as an elected official, I do feel that it's our duty to kind of bring the applicant and the residents together to kind of get their questions answered. So that's what I try to do. With that being said, this location is prime. It's prime commercial property, and this has been before you many times. And right now, the state that this lot is in is unacceptable. It's the entrance to our city. I would like to see something there. I do, I want to see something get developed there. It needs to really look better. It needs to bring income into the city. This is, we're losing out on tax dollars. So we do need that. The only thing is I do not support a curb cut on to Pennsylvania Ave. I know that's the one thing, even with the previous applicant, that was a decision that I agreed with, that there's no need to go on to Pennsylvania Avenue. So thank you this evening. And once again, I put my trust in the board's decision. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public discussion on this. And
Chief, may I have a minute just to wrap up, 60 seconds?
I'll give you 60 seconds, but that's it.
I'll do it in less than that. Members of the board, I am very sensitive and understanding of the comments we heard from the neighbors. And I can't disagree with their sentiments and how they feel. From issues of quality of life, and whether they're speculative issues or not, it's something of concern to them. And that's the reason why the applicants decided that we would abide by the buffer requirements, even though I stated at the earlier part of the presentation, I didn't think we were subject to that ordinance, but we would do that, and we would contribute money to make the quality of that area even better. The traffic issues are the traffic issues. We didn't spend the time, energy, and funds with a 400-page report unless we wanted to dig down facts as opposed to speculation and what people shoot from the hip ideas were about traffic. Sure, when you sit there and stand on the corner, there's a lot of traffic. We had Mr. Arsenal clock it, examine it, and reduce it to numbers and facts and figures. Whether you wish to accept it or not is totally within your realm. Understanding the fact that abutters are always resistant by nature to whatever will come next to them, from the papal residency to a gas station, there's always those concerns. Whether or not the gas station is going to explode, blow up, we're going to ruin a natural habitat. That's the exact reason why the legislature understood it when it created Chapter 48, Section 10, and it said that you can give desirable relief to the applicant without substantial detriment to the public good. They specifically put in the word substantial detriment, not what could be, what might be, what we think will happen, but will there be substantial detriment, and can you support the fact it is substantial detriment?
All right, I'm gonna
What they
close it
do,
out.
and they will do the job that as represented this evening.
I'm going to close it out, and just be aware that substantial is something that the board will have to deliberate and make their decision on. So the public's input on this is now closed. I'm going to open it up for discussion among the board members. Does any board member have anything to say?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Jim Sweeney, I would just say with all of the issues that you have to consider, the BAT station, the nature of the business in relationship to the park, the already established problems with the intersection, the pedestrian traffic, not to mention that the installation of this absolutely changes the quality of life for that street and that neighborhood. I couldn't put my name on it.
Mr. Chairman.
I spent quite a bit of time looking through the documents that were presented, particularly on the traffic. And what Mr. Nezarella said is true, that they did take a lot of time to put all these numbers together and create this document. But I also think that you have to weigh what you actually see when you travel through that intersection all the time. And my concern is that this piece of property is zoned for C5, which is a much lesser intrusive use than what a gas station would be as a C2. I think we heard tonight from the neighbors up there that they very much would like to see this eyesore gone and like to see something developed. But I think it's pretty apparent that the proposal that's before us tonight, there's no way that I can support putting a gas station in there that is going to exacerbate what I think is exacerbate tremendously the traffic in that area. And I mentioned earlier that even just a single turning move that causes traffic to back up will have a major impact on that intersection. So My opinion is it's zone C5. There's a whole litany of people, things that can go in there without zoning board approval as a C5 that could clean up that area. But I don't think this is the proper way to develop that property. And lastly, I'll say I'm very disappointed that we didn't have some kind of document where it was shown to the board that the potential developer actually worked with DW Field Park with the buffer that is required. I know the attorney said he thinks there isn't a need for a buffer. Well, I think there is. And I think that that buffer, which, you know, it's 100 feet, and if that is enforced, this land will never be developed. So there's got to be some kind of give and take, and I don't think what we heard tonight was much giving and taking between the developer and the park. So with that, I'll let somebody else speak, but those were my concerns.
Mr. Chairman, just real quick, I mean, I was with you the day we had the fire in that building about a year and a half ago now. And to talk to the traffic concerns, our biggest concern as the day went on is getting my apparatus moved. And they were pretty tight to the street simply because of the situation with that intersection at different times of the day. I think, you know, again, I'm on this board by ordinance for a reason, and that is to keep the public safe. I understand the neighbors' concerns and all the things they discussed. My concern is the city as a whole. And I think the junction at which this is located creates a real big pinch point for my fire apparatus. My fire apparatus responding to anyone, anywhere, whether it be to come up and take a left and go down West Street, or whether it be to go up Reynolds Memorial to the northern west side by the Historical Society and Good Samaritan Medical Center, or straight down Pleasant to Pearl and handling the large area down there. I would be greatly fearful that this would change that intersection and make it much more difficult for my apparatus and my members to get to that side of the city. That's all I have.
Mr. Chair, I guess I'm also worried, I guess, around like the environmental pieces and the safety concerns and the traffic pieces. The traffic study did seem substantial, but I think the qualitative data that we're gathering from the public today is also just as valuable as some of the quantitative pieces in the study. So and it seems like the butters came out today and they shared their concerns. And I think those are all pieces that we should definitely take into consideration.
Okay, we didn't talk about anything to do with any stipulations or whatever on this. I have nothing. I guess right now we're looking at either granting them a variance to do what they propose to do, other than they're telling us that they're willing to shut off that driveway on Pennsylvania Avenue. They're willing to work with the park, DW Field Park, to rectify some things that they want and referenced an understanding. I don't think any of the board members have, but they don't have a clue what this understanding was with the last board. It's all new board. And I also got to concern myself with the fact that if we're the zoning board and we think we're going to tell the state how they're going to change their traffic lights up there, I don't think that's going to happen. So if there's nothing else to be discussed, I would be open for a motion.
Motion to deny.
No, don't do that. Stay with the proposal is to make the motion to grant.
Motion to grant with the hopes it fails.
Second.
All right, so there's a motion to grant with the hope that it does not prevail, and it has been duly seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Leanis. Mr. Leanis? Oh. That's a no. Mr. Spinola?
No.
Mr. Sweeney?
No.
Chief Nardelli?
No.
Chair Gallagher?
No.
Mr. Chair, that's 0 in the affirmative, 5 in the negative.
Right, the vote is no votes in the affirmative, 5 in the negative. The petition is denied. All right, that should finish up our agenda for tonight.
Good night. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for participating.
It's okay, we just pay the bills, whatever they did work.
No, they're,
They're all paid for.
yeah, everybody.
Yeah, no,
Microphones are on, so be careful.
Your microphone's on.
We are going to be scheduled for the second half of this on Thursday night, this coming Thursday at 6 o'clock. So I will see everybody at 6 o'clock, and for those that will not be back, we, as a board, wish everybody a happy holiday season.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, we received a note in our zoning packets about a young man by the name of Carter Eman, a 15-year-old non-Brockton resident who's been very infatuated with the city of Brockton.
We're going to address that Thursday night.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.